welcome to the 467th episode of the Random Podcast from Heck. My name is Tony, and this is the podcast about random things in the world of entertainment, which includes movies, TV shows, and comic books. Big shout out to Andrew Loken. He is a big supporter of the show. You can be a supporter by going to patreon.com/gmanfromheck. Any amount you can commit to will be awesome. If you commit at the Rick Jones tier or higher, you get access to the secret podcast from Heck, which is an additional 30-ish minutes of extra podcast entertainment every single week. Last week I did a look back at a weird and wacky Lois Lane comic where she got some She sat in this experimental machine and she gained all this intellect, and it made her head grow, made her lose her hair, and she had this like really big super brain head. And she's like, I can't let Superman see me like this. What am I going to do? And adventure ensues after that. So it's, check it out. Find out how did she get out of that. And I don't know what it will be this week. Maybe another weird comic, or who knows. But if you can't commit to a monthly commitment, you can also help out by going to coffee.com/gmanfromheck, and you can buy me a virtual cup of coffee or 3. That's ko-fi.com/gmanfromheck. You can also buy past Off My Mind episodes on patreon.com/gmanfromheck. Just go to the shop tab. Go to or do it on your web browser. Don't do it on the iOS app because they will charge you, I forget if it's 15%. They charge you more. What is going on this week? So as I mentioned last week, I was really curious to see this Ice Cream Man movie. I did not see it. And last I checked, I should look it up, it's got like really low Rotten Tomato scores. And it's not playing. At first I kept checking. It's like, is it playing? Is it playing? Is it playing? There's basically two big theater chains in my area, and north of the city, and so I look at like the different theaters, and it's like no one is playing it. It's like I don't want to go way further north, and I don't want to go into the city. I was like, why is no one playing Ice Cream Man? And it's the same thing with her Private Hell, the Sophie Thatcher. But then seeing those Rotten Tomato scores, I kind of see it. And then what I saw one theater, I don't understand, unless they're adding more times. I only checked on Friday. They only had a 10:55 p.m. showing on Friday. Nothing during the day, nothing Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's like, is the movie really that bad? And then, also, I think it was like Thursday. Thursday I saw Steelbook was announced. Because a lot of times they announce the Steelbooks like the day before movies come out, and you can pre-order even though you haven't seen the movie yet or whatever. So the cover was revealed. I was like, I kind of like that, even though it's supposedly a bad movie. The page wasn't live yet on Amazon, and I was like, if it's like super low because no one's going to see it, maybe I'll buy it. It's the same price of a movie ticket if it's like under $20. When I checked it, I don't know if there's a goof or something like that, because then I checked Friday during the day, and it was live, and it was like $75. I'm like, are you freaking kidding? $75 for a regular movie. Now, like the Oppenheimer, I think there was a box set. It was maybe close to that. I don't know how much it was. It might have been more than that. But there's like it's a super long movie. There's like extra stuff, and I don't understand it. So I don't know if I will ever see Ice Cream Man, but supposedly it's bad. And there's some problems with that. I'm curious though, because So anyways, what are we talking about? The movie feature is not Ice Cream Man this week. Now, I believe I did mention last week that the week before, there was a secret movie that one of the theaters did. It was like a $5 mystery movie. And you don't know what you're going to see. You pay $5. They tell you the rating. So it's rated R. Don't bring your kids, basically, type of thing. So there's a rated R movie, and they give you like the approximate runtime. Because I always try to be like, I want to try to figure out, do I want to see this movie or not? And I think this is only the second one. The first one I went to, I think I've only done it once. There was Faces of Death, and I'm glad I saw it. $5. I enjoyed the movie for what it was, and for $5, heck yeah, that was great. So I wasn't really sure what this. I was wondering. I was like, would they do Ice Cream Man for the mystery movie? I was like, I don't know if they would do that because that didn't open up last week. It opened up or the week before. So I don't know if they would do something 2 weeks. But they did show a movie that was out 2 weeks before. They did One Night Only as the mystery movie, and which is weird because I think that has like a big opening. Maybe not. I don't know. But I saw that a week and 2 weeks ago, almost at this point, and I enjoyed it. It's I don't think it has like supreme ultra great Rotten Tomato scores, but I don't always agree with those scores. But for what it was, I was actually surprised. So I do have some stuff I want to talk about. I was a little hesitant because I was going to maybe talk about it last week along with Spider-Man, but I was like, I don't know if I'm going to have a movie for this week, so I might need to hold on to it, and I'm glad I did. But yeah, so I got some stuff to say. So I hope people do go see it. I don't know how it's going to do in the box office. I mean, I'm a little hesitant to say it's a cute movie because I know some people might be like, "Ugh, I don't want to see a cute movie," but it's good. It's basically a rom-com, but it has like a weird. Sort of a weird thing. We'll definitely talk more about that because it was actually. I'll say one more thing about it. I did see someone mention it on Threads. I don't think they loved it as much. They thought it was a little weird. But when they described this one little piece of information, there's a lot of people who were like, "What? I didn't see that in the trailer." And that's exactly how I felt when I was watching it. I was like, oh, "This is like a totally different movie type of thing." So we'll definitely have stuff to talk about that. So One Night Only is which is, Ice Cream Man is only showing one night only apparently in my area. But One Night Only is a movie. We'll have Silo. Silo is heating up. And you got that. We got X-Men 97, My Adventures with Superman. I feel like those two shows, we might be getting close to the end of the season. I could be totally wrong. I never know. I should always check this before I record. I never look at like how many episodes are left and all that. But what we are going to add, and of course I'm annoyed, but Batman Cape Crusader dropped. Season 2 is out on Prime Video, and the entire season is out there. I only watched the first episode 201. I was going to try to do another one, but then I was like, you know what? Maybe for this week, I only talk about one episode because I'm going to try to drag it on. No, that sounds bad when I say that. I'm going to try to trickle it out, slow burn, whatever. Mainly because there's like so much other stuff to talk about, and also because things are going to be ending. And then I think I mentioned last week I had a 2-day like math conference thing. It's like on a Wednesday and Thursday. That took like the whole day. So yeah, so that's what we're gonna do. And Batman Cape Crusader, it's good. Yeah, I do not understand why Warner Brothers, HBO Max passed on this because it's good stuff. So let's get into the news to see like what's going on. I saw this the other day. Gareth Edwards dropped out of Jurassic World 5 due to creative differences. And that's always interesting when you hear that happen. It's like, what are these differences? What caused them to say, yeah, you can keep your money. I'm not gonna make this movie now because it's great. It's frustrating it's unfortunate when that happens, but it's great when a creative person will not just take the money. What do they have integrity or I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but basically they're saying that I'm not going to compromise my vision and do this, and that's the weird thing. I always find it interesting with the director aspect because you have the writer of a movie, and then you got the director that comes in to make the movie off of the script. And I believe there are times a director tweaks the script. They change things because it may not line up with how they envision. And that's the tricky part, I think. The studio is hiring someone to direct this, to make this movie. But you would think, and again, I could be wrong, but I feel like in a lot of cases, the script comes first. You have to have or maybe you just have a draft. I don't even know. But I feel like you would have to have a script before you can figure out, like, hey, do you want to make this movie? Because sometimes some directors will write the script, be written and directed. But I feel like not necessarily all directors are writers. And I think, no offense, but I really feel the trick to writing would be in writing conversations. I think that would be the hardest part. And what do I know about anything? But I feel like whether it's a novel, it's a comic book, it's a movie, you have to be careful with how the conversations are delivered, are written, because you can write, like, okay, here's a scene, I want these characters talking about this, and if it doesn't come off natural, or if it can ruin the vibe, because it pulls you out. It's like, what is going on here? Yeah, you got that. I feel like the director, but then the director just comes, and I mean, how what are they allowed to change, and who has the final say so? I mean, is it the producer, the executive producer, is it the studio? But I feel like someone has to be like, yeah, you can't completely change that ending and make Scooby-Doo an alien, because you can't just do that. So I don't know. So Gareth Edwards is out. So the question is, who's gonna take his spot? And I saw some people were saying, maybe get Dallas Bryce Howard, because she was in the movie, and I don't. She's done. Did she direct that one movie with Henry Cavill and that like kind of spy thing? I don't remember if she did, but she's done episodes of like Mandalorian and Boba Fett, whatever. So I don't know. We'll see. And let's get a woman director. Some people are like, maybe Steven Spielberg will come back. I don't know if he would do that. Let's talk Sadie Sink. So if you've seen Spider-Man Brand New Day, Sadie Sink was amazing. Oh, that's the other thing. I didn't mention it. I don't know if I should talk about Spider-Man again. I don't know if I should do a little more spoiler talk or anything. I don't know if anyone wants to hear that. We'll see how long this episode is, because I did see the movie a second time. So we'll talk about that. Let's just say the movie has made $1 billion in 6 days. That is crazy. And I think, I don't know where the Odyssey is. The Odyssey is about to make $1 billion, or has made $1 billion, maybe. But man, what does that say? It's that people. And I was thinking about this the other day, where it's you have movies like Spider-Man, the comic book movies. A lot of people still kind of look down on them. And these movies are not nominated for Oscars or prestigious awards or anything like that. But these are the movies that make $1 billion, that make all these millions and millions and millions of dollars. These are the movies that people go to see. Yet you got something a little, the artsy fartsy, and I don't mean that necessarily as an insult, but you got these smaller productions. And like, who goes to see these movies? Some of these movies never even played in my county or my vicinity. And it gets nominated for all these awards because it's so fancy and whatever this and yeah, there's something about those movies. It's any movies I feel are amazing when you are creating, something and making it, not necessarily reality, but you're bringing it to life. So I don't care how bad, like Ice Cream Man, I don't care how bad that movie is. The fact that I can't speak for it. But the fact, you are taking something and you are creating this visual thing. So I'm always impressed with all that. But it's weird when you have these movies that everyone goes sees and they never get any recognition. So I don't know. But Sadie Sink, after seeing her, I feel like everyone's been impressed with what she did, and there's complexity to the character. That's stuff that we could talk about later. I don't know. But she was asked about her Marvel contract. It's like, how many movies do you have in your contract? 2, 10? And she's like, I can't really say. So what does that mean? My assumption is it's still under negotiation. like her contract is not set, and depending on how much power she has, she could determine. They might say, "Hey, we want you to do 5 movies," and then she's like, I'll do your 5 movies, but you have to pay me this amount for each one, or each one you have to increase the amount." And then maybe they're like, "Oh, we're not sure about that because we don't know how that 4th movie is going to do or whatever." So it could be a negotiating thing. Maybe it's still up in the air. Maybe Marvel or whoever is just being so weird. They're like, "Well, we might kill off your character in the 3rd movie, so we don't want to say you have a 10-picture deal when we're not going to honor it," or I don't know. But hopefully it's a lot. I mean, I wouldn't want any actor to get stuck having to movie. It's the same thing, because they may not want to do that. And she did Stranger Things for how long? But it always seems like when you have these actors, look how many, like Robert Downey Jr. He did like the Dr. Dolittle, and he did other stuff. I feel like they have time or opportunities to make other things. And Sadie Sink may want to do some stage work again, because she just did some stuff with Clark Gregg, right? They just did some stage production of something. So I don't know. But yeah, obviously, I think I can speak for most of us. Say like, yeah, we want her in as many movies, her and her character in as many movies as possible. So, while we're discussing the Marvel stuff, there's a rumor. One of the scoopers is saying that the Defenders may play a big role or have a major role, some sort of role in Avengers: Secret Wars. And depending on what Secret Wars is it going to be like the Hickman Battle World and you have different realities or whatever? Yeah, let's bring in Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Daredevil, Iron Fist. What are you going to do with Iron Fist? Because I don't think they're going to get Colleen. I think it would be cool. I think it would be about time, because these Netflix characters, the actors. Even though Daredevil came back and a lot of the characters are, Jessica Jones back, we saw, a certain other character, which maybe in case you haven't seen Last Daredevil, but I feel like they never were fully embraced by Marvel or by the MCU because, they were Netflix productions. So it's like, yeah, they exist? We don't, it wasn't fully clear. We thought they exist, but they kind of wasn't official, and now it is kind of official. It is pretty much official, because we had Matt Murdock in No Way Home, Far From Home, Can't Come Home, whatever, the last Spider-Man movie, and we got Punisher and Brand New Day. So I think it'd be cool to see like Jessica Jones in legit MCU movie. Well, let's make that happen, because I feel like they deserve it. We'll see. My fear is that there's just going to be like 57 different characters, and someone may have like 2 lines, but at least they're there. I don't know how that will be. There's all the X-Men stuff. There's rumors on casting. Like there's some Cyclops stuff. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to read this one article. I forget where I was at, where they're talking. Like apparently, this is all like regurgitated from different scoopers, and. One scooper, I don't know if it was one or if it's all the same, said that it was this Asa someone, but then there's 2 different Asas, and they're like, oh, I think my source heard it wrong. Maybe they just heard Asa, and so they thought it was Asa Butterfield, but it's really Asa something with a C. I don't even know who these actors are. But that's interesting. It's like who's this source that heard this? And is it like the coffee delivery guy that happens to be listening when they're bringing coffee into the conference room and people are talking? That's why I'm always hesitant about reporting on this stuff. But there's like all this talk about who's going to possibly be Cyclops, and I don't know if there's one person that's like the front runner. I don't know who that is. I forget what they were. I can't even think of the name. I don't know. And you're hearing like, oh no, maybe this character's cast or this character. Like there's stuff about Rogue, and it's just, I don't know. I find it annoying, and I don't know how it is, like, hearing me complain about it. But there's always, everyone's talking about it. It's like, well, it might be this, it might be this. And I get that people want to jump on it. They want to be able to say, yeah, I mentioned it way, months ago. But it's like, you're saying whatever is being thrown up against, wasn't there something about like throwing poop at the wall and seeing what sticks, or throwing something at the wall? But I feel like we have all these scoopers, and I don't want to accuse scoopers of making stuff up, but there's like so many times where they say this and it's like, oh, my source got it wrong or whatever. But it's like, is there a source? Like, who's this source? So I don't know. I just feel like there's so many rumors, speculation, and I just find it's like, how are they finding, who is talking about this? Because you shouldn't be talking about these. Like the other thing with X-Men, I guess we'll jump to that. I was going to talk about this later. So Indy Navarrete, she had mentioned that she has spoken with Jake Schreier about X-Men. So we've talked about this before, and I feel like if she's going to get a gig, like maybe she's already hired on for something, they haven't announced it. But I feel like if she is in talks with something, she shouldn't be talking about it. Because, she's mentioned like ever, since Obsession, because she did Obsession, what was it, like a couple years ago or something like that? She made this movie a while ago, and, she had no money, no jobs. And then all of a sudden Obsession comes out and everyone's like, this is amazing. And, so now she's talking to people, and she said I saw some clip or interview or something where she says one of the things that she likes doing is talking to people, is meeting all these different people and talking to them and stuff like that, because you got to have that networking thing, and it's a smart thing to do while she is, you could say, in demand at the moment, and she's got to be real careful not to drag it on too long, because I don't think she's really committed. Like, I don't think she has anything 100% that we know of lined up. So she's probably taking a lot of meetings, which is good, because it's probably important for her to meet all these potential directors or writers or casting agents or whatever, so they know who she is. Make that connection, get those names in your Rolodex, so then if something else comes up, they're like, hey, you remember me? They're like, oh yeah, we talked about butterflies and whatever, their mating season, and so yeah. But the thing is, they're like, well, who would you like to play, or there's something like that. And she said that she's like, well, Mystique has always been super cool. Let's talk about Mystique. I don't know how people feel about Mystique. Mystique's she is a cool character. She is interesting. There's like so many layers to her that I feel like weren't fully touched on in the movies, and I feel like they took her character in a totally different way. And the whole idea of trying to make Mystique a hero when she's not exactly a hero, that's kind of weird. But the thing is, we don't necessarily, just because we had Mystique in the old, the original Fox movies, and then the first class Fox, that's just weird. Because Mystique wasn't a first class, she wasn't like one of the original students. So it's just weird that they keep like it feels like they're shoehorning Mystique in, because Rebecca Romijn did a great job as Mystique, and then you got Jennifer Lawrence, she did a great job as Mystique. It's like, we don't need to keep having Mystique, because when you think about the X-Men, the original X-Men, Jean, Scott, Marvel Girl, Cyclops, Iceman, Beast, and Angel, you got those. And then if you're to want to go for, who's the next generation? We could throw in Havoc and Polaris. We can throw in, Storm, Wolverine, Colossus, Nightcrawler. Did I say Banshee? Banshee. We can even throw in Sunfire if we want. And then, kind of, go from there. The idea is, it's like, well, we got to cast Rogue. It's like, do we need to cast Rogue in right away? Do we need, I love Kitty Pryde. Do we need to cast Kitty Pryde? We don't need to get everyone in here. And it's one thing if you're going to do a totally different timeline or whatever, kind of like they did with X-Men Evolution, if you ever watched that, because I was actually talking to my daughter about that because I believe she watched that. We watched some of the episodes, but you had Kitty Pryde and Jean Grey like at the same school, and Rogue, in the same timeline, the same they were like around the same age. Versus in the comics, they're a little different. There's some differences in their ages or whatever. So if you are going to relaunch the X-Men franchise, you don't need to let's cast the 20 biggest X-Men character that to me is a dumb idea. Start us, especially if you're starting off, right now we have one mutant that we know of. And then are you going to introduce like 10 more, 15 more? It was like, we don't need that because you're going to do an X-Men movie and hopefully it's going to be awesome and everyone's going to love it. And then we're going to want another one and then another one and another. But this way, like when we had the Avengers, we only had a handful of characters. And then they started adding, I had anything to do with it. They started adding, other characters here and there. And then you can do the side movies and all this. But if all of a sudden you're going to say, okay, here's Xavier School and here's a class roster of 30 mutants, that I feel like you are potentially losing opportunities there because you're going to cast 30 actors, and maybe 30 is a lot. You're going to cast 10 actors. Let's go with 10 because I feel like 10 is a lot. You're going to cast 10 X-Men characters, and I'm not even talking about villains. How much of a role will these actors have? You're gonna put placeholders in all these characters. Like, let's say they're gonna have Lorna, because we're seeing a lot of Lorna in X-Men '97. You're gonna cast Lorna. She might not have a big role in the movie, and then we're gonna have X-Men 2. Lorna might not have a role in that movie, and then by the time it comes to doing something with her, she might not necessarily want to do anything. Or so I feel like we don't need to have all these background characters, these extra characters, supporting characters, if they're not crucial to the story. One of the stupidest things was you bring in Darwin into X-Men First Class and then you kill him, which makes absolutely no sense. When he won, he shouldn't even been in that timeline because he was so much later. And they just like threw the character away. And maybe it's the things like, well, we got to use a character so we don't lose the rights, which I don't think that's the case because there's so many characters. But whatever. That's my thought. So go back. So I don't think they need Mystique. I don't know if there's people who are like, yeah, Mystique was so cool in movies. I want Mystique. I want to see Mystique. I'm sure if she's not in there, maybe she's in the third, whatever the third movie is. I'm not saying it's X-Men 3. You might have other mutant-related type of movies. She doesn't have to be in the first thing. And do not put her as a founding student, whatever. It just does not make any sense. And the other thing, again, Indy Navarrete, she was good in Adventures of Superman and Lois. I feel like the character was annoying sometimes. Not her fault. It could have been the way the character was written. She was amazing in Obsession. But she's 5 feet tall. Does that matter? Could we have a 5 foot tall Mystique? I think Mystique should be taller than Wolverine. Wolverine is supposed to be 5'3". I don't know. And what are they going to do about Wolverine? Do not have any Wolverine, Hugh Jackman, and Jean Grey romance. So I don't know. And so by Indy Navarrete mentioning Mystique, is that like a red herring or blue herring? Is she just saying that to throw people off because she's really cast as someone else? But the thing is, if she's in talks, she shouldn't be talking about it. I feel like they wouldn't be happy with that. I don't know. So we'll see. There's going to be a Jetsons movie, apparently. Who's going to play George Jetson? I don't know how I feel about this. I'm right now, I'm not super crazy about it. There's the name recognition, which could help. I just don't know. Jim Carrey. I was a Jim Carrey fan before, but I got too much of him. I felt like it was just too much in my face, and I was like, no, I don't want to see any more Jim Carrey. I love the Jetsons. I may have mentioned the Jetsons before, here and there. So I don't know. I mean, it's because I care about the property so much, the IP or whatever you want to say. It's great that they have a big name actor like Jim Carrey that can draw attention to hopefully give it a little more credibility. But I don't know if people are going to say, "Oh, Jim Carrey is going to do that. And that's the Grinch that stole Christmas. He's going to be George Jetson." What? I mean, I hope it'll be good if that's going to happen. So we'll see. What about there? I guess there's a rumor. People, I don't know. I never heard this rumor, but I guess some people were saying it's like, "Oh, Batman Part 2 and Batman Part 3 are going to film back to back." And this is one of the things where James Gunn on Threads, he's like, "No, I can deny that is not true. That is not," or he's denying that it's happening. They are not filming them back to back, and probably I don't know what the delays have been. I feel like it's been getting the script perfect. Maybe I don't know, but I'm going to assume there is no script for Batman 3, not yet. So yeah, that's not going to happen. What about Carrie? When does that start? I don't even know. Is that this month? But Mike Flanagan, he promises you that we don't know how his Carrie is going to end. Because, and I am with a lot of people, I'm like, why is he making Carrie? How many versions have we had? Have we had two versions, 2 movie versions? I don't think there was a third. I think there's only 2. So it's like, why are we getting a maybe third version and make it a TV show, whatever. You can expand things out. Cool. The Stephen King books are usually very dense. So yes, there's a lot that you can talk about. Isn't necessary? We'll see. But you don't want it to be super rushed and all that. But it's like, how Carrie goes, but now he's saying you don't know how it's going to go. So what is Carrie going to get killed at the end? Because I don't think she gets. I'm trying to remember. I don't even know if I've read the book. I must have. Maybe I did. I think I did. And I think she survives at the end. Does she survive? I don't know. Who knows? So see, that's the thing. I don't know how it's going to end because I'm not even sure if I've read the book. I'm pretty sure. I know I've never seen the second Carrie. Was Chloe Moretz, what's her name, in the second one? I've never seen that one. I'm pretty sure I saw the first one. They're all going to laugh at you, right? Ready Player 2 apparently is in development, so that's good. I'm a little worried about that because I feel like the first one wasn't as big as it should have been. Because it's such a cool concept, a cool book, but I feel like I don't know did it catch on. And then they're going to do a second one. So my concern is what's the budget going to be for the second one? Can it be as good as it's supposed to be? So we'll see. But I'm happy that's happening. Doctor Who, still no idea what's happening with Doctor Who. What I realized, so Disney Plus did the spinoff, the War of Land and Water, or something like that. It was supposed to be like I think it was 4 or 5 episodes. I think it's 5. A spinoff with UNIT, the government agency, whatever, military agency in London. So there's supposed to be like this invasion or whatever happening, but the Doctor wasn't around at this time. So they're basically having to deal with it on their own. And we've seen, a lot of those characters in several episodes. So it kind of makes sense that let's give them a spin-off show. And I remember talking about it and everything like that. And I kept waiting for it to come out because I was going to cover it on the podcast. Apparently, I think it came out. Wait, now I don't know. Was it like December 2025, which would have just been 8 months ago? But even so, 8 months ago, and I didn't. I'm still like. I was like, wait, I never watched that show. So I looked it up on IMDb. It's like, yeah, it aired. I totally missed it. But that's not what I'm talking about. I do still want to see that, but now who knows when I will. A former Doctor Who showrunner, Chris Chibnall, and this is how bad I don't even know what season, what era he was a showrunner for. I'm thinking Peter Capaldi. See, now I feel like I should look this up. Okay, just doing a quick search without going into like his full Wikipedia page, but because I'm seeing one image where they're showing like Matt Smith, Jodie Whittaker, and like Torchwood. So I think he worked on Torchwood, but then I'm seeing that he and Jodie Whittaker, they made a pact that they would do a 3 series and out. They would do 3 series and then that was it. So I did not see all of the Jodie Whittaker. I didn't even see the whole like first season because unfortunately I didn't love some of those stories. Well, anyways, what he is saying is BBC can't really afford any version of Doctor Who right now because it's not cheap, and I think there's a matter of like how they get their funding and so forth. So it's that, and maybe that's why like Disney did they do 2 seasons? I don't even remember if they did 1 or 2. But yeah, it's I can't imagine it's cheap, and BBC wants to do and wants to take it back, but can they afford to make? Who knows? And I guess the last bit of news is it's not really much to end with, but there's a rumor that Rosamund Pike is in talks to be the love interest or the female lead in Ghost Rider. I was like, okay. I don't know. I'm trying to think. What has she done? I think she did. See, now I don't even know. And I don't want to look it up because I hate, like, I don't want to pause and do it. I think she was in Gone Girl. Was that her? I think she's like really good. So we'll see. But I'm more curious, like, which, is it Johnny Blaze? Have they said? Do we know? So, I don't know. I respect Johnny Blaze. I'm not like, man, Ghost Rider is my favorite character. We'll see. Well, we'll see what else is happening, but that is going to be the news for the week. All right, with comic books, I think there was a Gatchaman Red Impulse book that came out. I didn't read it. So I didn't read anything. I don't think there was anything in Dynamite that I would have read. I didn't even read anything at Image. So Image had Mask number 3. I probably would have read that. I will try to read that if I remember. But yeah, because and I am curious like what's going to happen because the second issue left us on a cliffhanger. So I need to read that. But then there's a Transformers movie 40th anniversary. I don't know how. I don't know. We'll see about that. And because I think, yeah, it's by Ralph Macchio. So I think that's just the original adaptation. I don't feel like I need that. There's White Sky number 5. I don't know if I'm caught up with that current on that. And I have no idea what this, I know I've read at least 3 of the issues, if not all 4 previous ones. I don't know what's going on in that series. I am curious. So I don't know. And then that was it from Image. So let's jump over to Marvel. I'm not sure. So Amazing Spider-Man. Let's go start with this. Amazing Spider-Man 334 or issue 998. So I'm not sure where they're going with this. I feel like I do. So we got. It's a lot of like sad Spider-Man stuff coming up because now that we got this Cormac guy, he's spending a lot of time with Aunt May, so Peter's feeling, pushed aside. It makes sense. It's unfortunate, but I also feel like I don't know how. I feel like Peter is an adult that he shouldn't have the feelings that it appears that he's having, but it does make sense in a way. He's got a lot on his plate. He's frustrated, he's upset, and everything, and he's kind of taking it out on some others. I mean, you look at the cover; he's bam, giving a big punch to Electro. And that being said, Electro kind of deserves it for what stuff that happens here, and it's also interesting, Peter's working with damage control. It's like, that's a big coincidence, So there's a lot going on, and it's not really so like the stuff with damage control seems like a plus, because damage control is trying to be more proactive, because especially this guy that's in charge, he's tired of having to clean up messes and everything. So it's like they got some like old shield hardware or whatever. So let's try to stop some things from happening, and it makes sense because if damage control is about fixing stuff and if they're basically like an insurance company, yes, they get the payment in, but it still has to cost a lot of money to clean up all these messes. So if they can be a little proactive, how are they going to get the funding from that? How are they going to make any money off of that? That's a question, but I'm sure they can there's ways to do it. But just with what we're seeing from the movies, it's like, now we got damage control. We had damage control in Wonder Man and damage control in Brand New Day. Can they be trusted here? Maybe. I would hope so. But yeah, so we'll have to see where this is going. And then we got, Peter dealing with his alien girlfriend and his alien roommates, which I don't understand why that was ever a thing and what they're going to do with it. But I guess, it wouldn't be Spider-Man if he had like a bunch of stuff going on. There was some confusion with Joe Robertson, Robbie, right? His name is Joe, but they call him Robbie Robertson. Is it Robbie Robertson? I could have sworn somehow, so spoiler, I could have sworn that he had figured out Peter was Spider-Man, because it's always been the longest time. It's like he has to figure it out because he's not an idiot. He can see things and maybe it's kind of obvious. And even in some recent issues, it kind of seems like, oh, I guess he does know. They've said that. But then there is an exchange between Robbie and Spider-Man here, and now it's like, wait, he doesn't know? But the information that he knows, I'm a little confused with what's going on here. Because, okay, so what is going on is like Spider-Man asked him to look into this Cormac guy. Well, I don't want to say too much, but so I don't know. I'm confused. I want to talk to someone about Robbie. Like what does he know? What doesn't he know? But I'm concerned. I've mentioned it before. That is Cormac going to be like not on the up and up, because he seems like too good to be true, and it's going to be annoying if he's not. But it's usually how it works. Captain America number 14. So Captain America's still in hell, and he's trying to liberate souls, the tortured. He's working with Dr. Doom, and then we got I don't know if I mentioned it. Red Skull is down there working for Mephisto, and of course he wants to take out Captain America. So I don't know. It's okay. Civil War Unmasked number 4. This focuses on Tigra, because Tigra basically during the Civil War she joined Iron Man's side, even though she didn't necessarily believe in what he was his side, what he was fighting for, but she felt that it was the easiest way to avoid death or injuries and stuff like that, and she had to infiltrate Captain America's team and kind of work for Iron Man's team, but so got some and it's interesting like what happens here, but I don't know. Fantastic Four number 15, 65th anniversary spectacular. This was decent. This was good. There were a few, I think it was maybe like 5 pages, like recap of it. It's a little bit longer. It's like maybe like 30. It's over 30 pages, 30 something. But there's a few pages like the Fantastic Four number 1, and it's like I don't need to see these recreations. I don't care who's drawn. I don't even remember if they're original art or I think they're new art. I don't need to see new renditions of stuff that we've seen so many times. I get it. We're celebrating, but it's like we don't need to celebrate. it's like a 60th anniversary, 65th anniversary, or they can do like the 7th anniversary. And the story, I kind of liked the story. It was interesting. It's kind of sad and tragic in a way, but it is interesting. So I guess it was a good story because I was like, wow. Iron Man number 8. Got Whiplash. I'm not a Whiplash fan, but yeah. And it's annoying because then he goes to Stark, whatever Industries, and he starts attacking. Where's Iron Man? And yeah. And then someone else comes up at the end. It's like, what? So I didn't love it. It's just, I don't know. It's very cliche. And again, this is the problem where if you are a hero and you don't have a secret identity, he's at one of the facility, and he mentions to someone because they're like, "Do you build the armor here?" He's like, "No, I do that somewhere else." And obviously he's going to do it because you can't do it in a place where you have all your public employees or whatever. So he's keeping that separate. But this is the problem where anyone who has any beef with Iron Man, you're going to attack his business, and that puts all his employees at risk. And it's just, yes, that's a reality of how it goes, but it's an annoying story. So it's like I don't really care to read about that, but I don't know. Then there's Talk-On First Strike. I don't know what this is. What is Talk-On? Is this from that game? I don't even know what this is. Ultimate 4v4 tag team fighter. I think is this anything to do with Marvel Rivals? No idea. There's Mary Jane, Face It Tiger, number 1. And I was like, oh, didn't they just announce that Mary Jane's getting her comic and everything? And, it's potentially not going to be Venom anymore. But then I look at this cover. It's like, okay, that's a cool cover. Like, who did the cover? I saw Jim Chung. So Jim Chung does the cover. He's amazing. And then you look at the credits. It's like, oh my gosh, that's like a phone book of credits on the cover. It's like great that they're crediting everyone. Why is there so many people in there? Then you look at the first page. It's like, okay, there's first story, Faces in the Crowd, writer Jam DeMatteis, artist Andrea Borcardo. And there's Vamp number 9, written by Ann Nocenti, art by Alina Yerfriva something. And then there's Soft Words at Sunset, J. Michael Straczynski, art by Luigi Zagara. And then there's like Rita, written by Ashley Allen, art by Phil Noto. So it's like you got 4 stories in here. It's like, what? And what's weird, like in one of them, like Peter and Mary Jane, I think they might even be married. But there's one where they talk about like losing a child, and it's like I thought all that was erased. Have they ever been married now in the comics? Is their marriage still exist? Because they didn't get divorced. Because Marvel doesn't want to have a divorced superhero, heaven forbid. But didn't one moment in time, didn't that erase their relationship or their marriage or whatever it was? So it's weird that you're focusing on these stories, but yeah. And so, it was nice to revisit that time, but I'm just confused where that lies in there. And it also got me thinking, it's like, if they did have a kid, or were married and had a kid, it's like, they didn't lose a kid, right? Because what was it, Longrain, Marissa, what was that lady's name? Some lady worked for Norman Osborn. She gave Mary Jane some stuff I think they're at the Daily Bean, Daily Grind, whatever, the coffee shop that Ben Reilly hung out at. And so I think she gave Mary Jane something in her tea or whatever that induced her labor. And then when she went into labor, somehow this lady, Alyssa Mongrain or whatever, I don't know, she posed as a nurse somehow. And then they're like, sorry, your child's a stillborn. But where'd they get this stillborn baby? I don't even want to think about that. they took the real baby. She goes on a boat with the Scryers, the Norman's Scryer Society, whatever group. And then that baby ended up becoming Mayday Parker. Right? Isn't that the story? So the thing is, what I'm wondering, maybe this is a time to ask this, is doesn't Norman Osborn have any memory of this? And if he is so good now and friends with Peter, shouldn't he be like, oh, by the way? Or has he forgotten because everyone's forgotten? I don't know. Moving on. Moon Knight, number 7. Yeah, there's a awkward ending here with what happens. So basically, Moon Knight and Clea, they've formed the Midnight Suns. We got Robbie Reyes, Ghost Rider. We got Blade. We got Daredevil. And is there someone else? I feel like I'm forgetting someone. They're trying to rescue Moon Knight's friends, and something happens. And I feel like there's more to it than we see, but it's not going to go too well. Then there's Rivals: Origin of the Hood. I was kind of skimming through this, and like, I feel like this. I mean, I don't know much about the Rivals universe timeline or whatever, but it's definitely feels like something different. And yeah, it was I don't know how I felt about that. Venom Unchained, number 1. So Eddie Brock is in jail, but he doesn't have the symbiote suit. He's talking to someone, but it's like, wait, he can't be talking to Venom. Is he just crazy? Is he actually talking to Venom? Because Venom's with Mary Jane. And, he wants to get out of jail, but, he's locked up. And then, we're going to have the Queen, because this is a Queen in Black tie-in book. So it's like Hela's going to invade. Eddie's in jail. He's in this supermax jail. What's he going to do? Then we had Queen in Black number 2. The first issue was fine. This one was harder for me to read because it's getting to the point where it's like I don't care, and I'm curious. I hope people are enjoying this, but I'm looking at this crossover with all these different Queen in Black this, Queen in Black that, and I just don't care about all these characters and everyone becoming a symbiote and Hela trying to. I don't know. It's hard for me to read, but hopefully it's just me. Uncanny X-Men number 33. This was annoying as well. So I expressed my concern with Rogue and Gambit leaving. So Gambit is sort of like possessed from this thing, this eye of this dragon, whatever he took or whatever. So they told the kids that they're kind of like watching and training that they have to go and deal with this. The kids are so distraught, think that they're just abandoning them. It's not like, no, we're gonna go cure. I don't even think they told the kids that Gambit is. I don't know if they know he's dealing with stuff, that he's possessed or whatever. Because then maybe they don't want them to panic more. But it's like the kids feel that, as far as the kids know, they're just leaving them, deserting them, and they're like never going to return. Versus, like, shouldn't you say, hey, Gambit is going through some stuff. We need to help him. We're going to need to find a cure. Then we'll come back. It's like they don't even say that. So I was worried that, like, oh, so they're going to be gone. They are here, but trying to get help's not easy. Even though there's someone on the cover that could help them, but maybe they can't. And then with the kids, so even though Jubilee's there, Nightcrawler's supposed to be there, I don't think Wolverine is in this issue. Because who knows where he's at. But then they bring in Monet and Quicksilver to, like, hey, we want you to help with the kids. Even though they don't know the kids. And the kids are incredibly rude. And, like, I think her name is Calico. She's like, she hates Quicksilver, which, a lot of people hate Quicksilver. But It's just like, oh my gosh, you suck. And I'd be like, all right, you know what? Screw you kids. I'm going somewhere else. Oh man. What if Captain America? So this was, what if Captain America wasn't revived until 2099? It's a cool concept. You know, we've seen this. I talked about one on the Secret podcast, the original what ifs, where Captain America, what if Captain America was quote unquote revived today, which actually was like 1983 or something like that. So, but the idea of him not being revived until 2099, that's interesting because, you know, he misses all the Avengers stuff and X-Men and Doctor Doom and Galactus and everything, but he's gonna wake up with the 2099 people, like, you know, Miguel O'Hara, Ghost Rider, Ravage, you know, all these people. So there's a lot to explore because so when he comes to, they're all there, like, you know, Spider-Man, Miguel, Ghost Rider, you know, Skullfire from X-Men and someone else from X-Men. They fill him in on what's happening and everything. And it's like, oh, so there is a problem with the way the government works and it's all corporations and everything. It felt like it was so rushed. This was an idea where this could have been like a cool miniseries to explore what would like Captain America 2099 be. You know, how would he adjust to this time period? How would he deal with things? And it was just like, it was so fast. And it's that kind of took away the enjoyment for me because it's just like I barely had time to process things because it's just like, okay, whatever. Then there's Wade Wilson, Deadpool #7. I'm not reading this. Apparently this is only part 2 of Bad Pools. I feel like it's been more than one issue where Deadpool's dealing with parts of him that get chopped off and have formed sentience and whatever. Oh wait, this was #1. X-Men Omega of Apocalypse? X-Men of Apocalypse Omega? I don't know. So this is book 1. I was thinking this was, maybe it is. It's by Jeff Lowe and Simone de Mayo. Yeah, so I didn't read this. I have no idea if this is more of a continuation from Age of Apocalypse, maybe. Yeah, I don't care about that. So that is it for Marvel. At DC, I did not read very much. Batman #12 was really good. And it might be like my favorite DC comic right now. Maybe. So in the last issue, I mean, you can see she's on the cover of this one. So in issue 11, we had is it the first appearance? She appeared like on the last page. I'm talking about Verity Pennyworth. So she is, I don't know if I don't remember if she's a great niece or something of Alfred. And she's going to be Batman's new butler. So it's an interesting character. I don't know if that was her first appearance or if they consider it a cameo and this is her first appearance or whatever. But so far, she seems really cool. Hopefully that's going to stick. And there's like all this other stuff going on, which I find it fascinating. Like there's all these assassins. Like, what are they up to? What are they trying to do? And so I'm just digging it. And then Jorge Jimenez's art is just really great. So yeah, I'm digging that book. Then the other stuff that came out, it's nothing that I'm really reading. There was Absolute Superman 22, so I'm not reading that. Absolute Green Lantern. I'm not reading that. JSA 22. Yeah, haven't read that. Supergirl Survive #3. I'm not even sure what that is. I mean, maybe I must have seen when 2 and 1 came out. We got Batgirl 22. Yeah, I was a little turned off a few issues ago, but maybe I should try again. And then there's DC X Sonic the Hedgehog. The Dead Man #3, which is supposed to be really good. Maybe I should go back and try to check that out. Adventures of Superman, Book of L. I have no idea what that's about. And then there is 100 Bullets, the U.S. of Anger. I'm not sure what number that is. That is it. So that is all the comics, I think. I'm sure there's something else that I missed. But that's comics for the week. All right. My Adventures with Superman. I totally blanked on the name. My Adventures with Superman, Season 3, Episode 8. It's Raining Supermen. And that raining is Reigning. So like Reign of the Supermen. I'm sure maybe you know about that. And I did look this up before because I'm always like forgetting like how many episodes. Actually, now I'm not sure. I think there's 10 episodes in the season. So we got 2 more after this. And it's kind of crazy. I think there's 10. Because it's like, what I don't know what's going to happen. As far as this episode goes, it's a good episode, but it's like the show is so, it's kind of dreary. You know, you got this, I love the animation style. You know, and the colors, you know, it's very vibrant and everything. It's just very, I just love the fluidity and just everything. But my goodness, it's like things are so down and dreary because, you know, Clark has lost his powers for a while and you know, it hasn't been easy for him. And then it's like, okay, John from the future came. Awesome, great, they got a son. But then they found out, because Superman died. And it's just like things are just like not good. And then blah blah blah, they saved the day, they beat Hank Henshaw and everything's cool, right? And John goes back and then he's like captured and things are worse. It's like, oh my gosh, so now he's got this, you know, he had a bad life and now things have gotten worse. And then we see, last episode, we saw John was back. Who's that girl with him? And why do they look so mad? So we find out here, things are even worse. So it's just like everything's bad. So let's get in it. Clark and Lois are standing in a park, and we see the 2 angry kids in super suits. They're glaring down at them. And Clark's like, John. And then the girl's like, hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. I'm Lara. And Lois like, we have a daughter? And Clark's like, Lara. Lois like, and John, you're back. He's like, it's Jonathan. And what do you mean I'm back? I've never been here before in my life. And Lois like, you were here a month ago. It's like, we saved your father, remember? He's like, what are they talking about, Lara? And she's like, I don't know. And Lois like, what? Clark's like, he doesn't remember me? So Lois like, so when we change the future, John's like, we rewrote John's entire life. Then we see Lex at LexCorp. He's got a bandage like wrapping his head. He's working on some files like in his computer. Slade comes up. He's like, you know, most people prepare for a Pentagon inspection. And he reaches around and like, he touches like the top of Lex's head and he kind of flinches back in pain. He's like, that's a rather severe look, even for you. He's like, care to catch me up in your little science project? Lex's like, it's on a need-to-know basis and you don't need to know. And Slade's like, we're supposed to be partners, remember? And he's like, no, Wilson, you work for me, remember? Then Amanda Waller and like 2 dudes in suits and shades arrive. And she's like, hello, Lex. He's like, Director Waller, she's like, yes, back in charge. He's like, and then Slade's like, I guess you work for her now. So inside, at first I was like, where are they at? Are they in Lois's apartment? But then it's like, no, they're actually at the farm you see later. So Lois, Clark, and the 2 kids are there. And Jonathan's like, so we've already done this? Lois like, just you, Lara wasn't here. Lois and Clark kind of like both gulp, and then Lois quickly adds, but we're so happy to meet you. And Lara's like, wait, I didn't exist? And Lois is like, not technically. And Lara's like, was I like an accident? And she's like, but it's like right there. It could be like, no, you weren't an accident. Clark died before you would have had a chance to be born. I'm assuming she's younger than Jonathan. And then Jonathan's like, look. If things didn't work out last time, Lois like, they did. And Clark's like, you saved me. And then Jonathan's like, stop saying that. That wasn't me. Lois like, it was you, a version of you. And your coming back made everything better. He's like, then why is my future worse? And it's like, yeah, this John, he's a brat. We see Jimmy, he's kind of nervous. Kara's carrying him like the back of his jacket, and as she's flying, she doesn't look like too happy. She's just kind of scowling. He's like, beautiful day out, eh? And she's like, the weather is pleasant. And he's like, so where are we now, Kara? She's like, this guy over Metropolis headed to Smallville? He's like, no, I mean, where are we with each other? Are you? I mean, am I? Ah! She's like zips down to the farm. And he's like, hey, did I say something wrong up there? And she's like, Jimmy Flamebird, what do you want? He's like, I guess I'd want to be a better friend, Kara. And you can see that kind of hurt her. And she like turns and she's like, I see, a friend. Is that all you want? He's like, I just want to be with you. What do you want? She's like, I want to trust you, but I'm afraid you will leave me alone again. He's like, Kara, and then the door whips open and it's Clark. He's like, oh good, you're here. And he like brings him inside. He's like, Kara, Jimmy, this is Lara and Jonathan from the future again. And Kara's like, John, you're back. And Lois cuts her off. He's not that John, he's new. And Clark's like, yes, do not provoke him. And she's like, understood. Welcome, new John. He's like, it's Jonathan. And Lara's like, we should get back on the mission. And Jonathan's like, because that worked out so well for the last guy. And Lois is like, what mission? And Lara's like, the mission General Lane gave us. And Lois is like, wow, Dad can't stop giving orders. And Jimmy's like, well, whatever got you here, I'm glad to have Superboy back. And he stands up quickly, don't call me Superboy, I'm Superman. And Jimmy's like, we already have a Superman? And Jonathan gets in Clark's face. It's like, do you? So Jimmy kind of gets between them, chuckles, and he's like, Superman this, Superboy that. Who wants a super slice of Pa Kent's world famous? And Jonathan's like, I'm done with this. And Jimmy's like, or there's snickerdoodles, but Jonathan's gone. So Bratty, Jonathan, he's standing out by the cornfield. Clark goes out to him and calls his name. He's like, I know all of this must be strange for you, but if you need to talk, I'm here to listen. So Jonathan picks up a baseball. He's like, you think we can just have a heart-to-heart? Maybe give me a motivational speech? Promise me a better tomorrow? So Kara's like outside too, and she hears Jonathan talking. He's like, you think what? We're just gonna play catch? He throws it, whoosh, leaves like flaming streaks in the cornfield, which seems kind of rude. He's like, I learned to use my powers on my own, okay? I defended Earth on my own because you weren't there. No one was there. And Kara's like kind of surprised and she zips off. Jonathan's like, I'm not here for you this time, Superman. Stay out of my way. And he zips off in the air. And Clark's like, Jonathan, wait. Then it kind of gets like windy, leaves are blowing all around Clark. And then like the farm's gone. It's like this desolate world. There's like rocky mountains. And it almost looks like there's two suns, like orange skies and everything. He's like, it's like this again. He's like, no, stop. And he's back at the farm. Inside, Lara's like looking at a cookie, and Lois is like, you should try that. Pa Kent, woo! It's like, that man can bake. It's like, hey, don't worry about John, and time loops, okay? And she like passes a glass of milk, kind of slides it across the table to Lara. She's like, just tell me why you and your brother are here. Lara sets a cookie down. Our mission is confidential. And Lois is like, of course it is. And Lara's like, but General Lane sent us back in time to kill Lex Luthor. Lois spits out like the snickerdoodle or whatever she's eating. She's like, what? She's like, you travel back in time to commit murder? She's like, Lara's like, we're here to protect the future. And Lois is like, what kind of future do you come from? And she's like, in our time, Luthor commands a personal army of mind-controlled Kryptonian clones, the Eradicators. Lois is like, there has to be another way to stop him. You don't have to kill Lex just because my dad told you. And she's like, your dad? And Lois is like, yeah, General Lane, salt and pepper crew cut, always giving orders. And Lara's like, no. And this is what, it should have been obvious, right? She's like, no, you told us to kill Lex Luthor. You're General Lane. And Lois is shocked. But we know that there's been General Lois. We saw her in the last episode, right? The Mixia's Picklick. Lex is giving a presentation to Waller. He's like, as you can see, LexCorp is paving the way to a safer and more secure metropolis with... Waller's like, save it, Luthor. And Wilson like chuckles. Lex is like, Wilson, you're still here? And he's like, my apologies, Mr. Luthor, but why don't you show Director Waller your latest project? And he's like, it's still in its infancy. It's not ready for review, but over here. And Waller's like, I insist. He's like, very well. Presses a button on his keyboard, and his chamber thing opens. He's like, Director Waller, allow me to present Project Eradicator. So this is the future thing Lara was talking about. It's like already like almost there. So there's like a body inside this big like tube thing. He's like, once complete, this weapon will put humanity back on top as the world's dominant species, created from Superman's own living tissue. Like, when did he get that tissue? I don't know. Maybe I'm forgetting it. So from Superman's own tissue, Eradicator self-repairs, self-evolves, and will function under my complete and direct mental control. So, and they've all kind of been backing away from the pod, and I think it's like Slade's like mental control. Lex is like, the hardware is not finished, but once it is, the Luthor gray matter I put in Eradicator's brain will let me control him with mine. And Wilson's like, you put a piece of your brain inside that thing? Waller's like, that's all I need to see. Shut it down, Luthor. And they start like walking out. He's like, wait, you don't understand. The Eradicator will revolutionize. She's like, no, you don't understand. I'm not just shutting down Project Eradicator. I'm shutting down all of LexCorp, effective immediately. So Lois and Clark plop down on the sofa. Lois is like, well, I'm a horrible parent. Clark's like, me too. It's like, poor Jonathan. And she's like, Jonathan, I'm talking about Lara. Ugh, you think you're doing your best as a mother, but... And Clark's like, well, at least you were there. I somehow missed our kids' lives 2 times in a row. And Lois is like, maybe that's it. Maybe I'm the problem. I'm the reason Lara turned out this way. And Clark's like, wait, what's wrong with Lara? And then Lois is like, wait, where is Lara? Lex is trying to convince Waller that he's working for the good of humankind. Looks like the Eradicator in the tank is like watching and listening because we like see it from its perspective. Then Lex shows her this device like on a cart. He's like, you see this? He's like, that's a prototype time travel device. Imagine what we could do once it's complete. You'll be able to go back into the past and stop your enemies before they even strike. She's like, I've made my decision, Luthor. He's like, listen, I've seen what's out there. Superman's not even the worst of it. There are things waiting in space that... And she's like, Superman put his life on the line when we needed him. I'll take space aliens over you any day. You've not only failed to live up to Checkmate's expectations, you don't even look after your own. And she looks over at like Wilson, and Luthor like kind of hisses like, you. Then there's like an explosion behind it. But it's like, should we talk about like Hank Henshaw like practically destroying Metropolis because of Lex? You know, it was his idea to make him and enhance him, whatever. So there's an explosion. Lara busts in. Waller's like, and who is this young lady? She's like, I'm here for Luthor. And he starts running. He's like, no, stop. And he like runs behind Wilson, shoves him forward like towards Lara. He's like, I'm just a scientist. There's a pause. Wilson puts his swords away, and Lara's like, you're the end of the world. And then she like zips towards him, and he slams his fist on a button, like, and there's council behind him, and the Eradicator pod opens. It like falls out onto the floor. It opens like one red eye, and then grabs Lara's leg, and slams her down on the floor. And she stares up at the big hulking thing, and she fires heat vision at it, and like knocks it back. It's like stunned for a second, but then stands with like some crackling black energy. And then it suddenly like grows a full head of hair because it was like bald before. It roars and heads towards her, and then like the screen like fades to black with the screen because normally we'd have a commercial here. Kara is like flying carrying Clark, and Clark's carrying Lois. Jonathan's carrying Jimmy, and he's like, just like Lara to rush headlong into things, always trying to be mommy's perfect little soldier. So they get to the plaza outside LexCorp, and Wilson comes out wearing like an armored suit because I don't think he had the suit on before. He's like, sorry kids, the whole site's locked down. He pulls out his swords. He's like, no one gets past me. And he's looking at Jonathan and Kara. It's like, especially Kryptonians. And Lois is like, where's Lara? And he's like, Lara? Is that the superpowered teenager who tried to kill Lex? They took the fight underground. And Clark's like, who's they? So then the ground underneath starts to crumble. Wilson like kind of backflips out of the radius. Jimmy, Lois, and Clark like start to stumble a bit, but only Lois and Clark fall. So the ground like caves in. They land in like a tiny bit of water underground. And she's like, you okay, Smallville? He's like, yeah, the sewage broke my fall. And she's like, oh, good. And he helps her up. And he's like, is Lara down here? And she's like, she must be. And the sooner we find her, the sooner we can get out of here. There's a big thud off to the side. Clark's like, Lara? They go to investigate. Lois gets grabbed. Lara reaches out, is like holding her side. And Lois is like, for a second, I thought there was a monster in here. And she's like, shh. Lara's like, shh, there is a monster down here. Elsewhere in the tunnels, Kara calls out to Kal-El and Lois. Jonathan suggests they split up to find them faster, and Kara's like, that is unwise. He's like, the lead in this facility is disrupting that. And Jonathan's like, whatever. He's like, I don't need your permission. He zips off. Kara continues looking, calling out. She's like walking on some tracks. She hears like a grunt, and she's like, Jonathan? Then a subway train comes, slams into her, smashes her into a wall. And then the red-eye Eradicator is behind it and like the smoke, and then disappears. So it threw the train car at Kara. Meanwhile, Jonathan seems fine. He's walking around. He hears a couple people like shout for help. He goes to this other area, and he sees some like cables sparking, and the Eradicator comes up behind him, like slams his head down against the ground. And another like fade to black, and we're no. So I wonder if the Eradicator is like mimicking voices and made him, because you hear a couple voices, but unless it was just echoing, maybe, I don't know. Lara, Clark, and Lois hear a scream. Lara screams out Jonathan's name and zips in that direction. Clark calls out to her to wait. They run after and around a corner. Lois like, which way? And he's like, I think she went. Then they hear something, turn around. The Eradicator jumps up and gets ready to pound his fist into them. They move out of the way and it hits the ground. It turns and raises his arm again to pound Lois and Clark. But Lara flies up and gets on its back. And she's like, where's my brother? And she's like pulling back on his hair. It roars because it can't reach her because it's like so big now and everything. So it can't, the arms are too big to reach where she's at on its head. So it's like thrashing about. It's like smashing into the walls in a tunnel. Lois and Clark like run off. They fall into this like big circular pit, almost like an arena. It's like some sort of, I don't even know what it's for. It's like something underground. Eradicator and Lara smash through a wall. And they end up in this pit as well. And so she flies at it. She's like punching it and kicking it, and it's like swats her. And she uses her I don't know if it's like laser vision or heat. I'm assuming it's heat vision. She hits it in the face, and it feels some pain. It starts like shaking, and more black energy pulses from it. There's like a big roar. It shoots beams out as well at Lara. So she gets knocked back and rolls by like Lois and Clark's feet. Lois asks like, "What is that thing?" And Lara says that it's an Eradicator. She's like, "But this one is different." So its eyes start to glow at them. Jonathan grabs it from behind, and he's like, back off. He lifts it over his head, slams it back, like it was a suplex, I don't know what it's called. The Eradicator starts like shooting beams at him, shoots the walls, like carving through stuff. Jonathan flies at it, grabs him. Lara gets up and goes to him. Lois calls out, she's like, you're hurt. He's like, get back. Lara like pauses and looks at Lois, and Jonathan yells, he's like, don't listen to her. He's like, get behind him. So Lara's kind of torn, who she should listen to, and Jonathan's like, Lara, listen to me. Then the Eradicator's big hands grab Jonathan by the face, tosses him past like Lara and Lois and Clark, and he like slams into a wall. He's like knocked out. Hopefully he's just knocked out, not dead, because he wouldn't kill him in the middle of the episode. Lara like sees him and like screams like, no. She zips over him. The Eradicator like follows and jumps high up, and it's like slammed down its fist, but then a train car slams into it like before it can connect. So Kara's there, so she used its trick and threw a train car at him. She's a little scratched up and has some blood on her mouth. She like wipes it. She's like, stay away from my family. The Eradicator pushes a train car off of it. It roars. Lara gives him a mimicking roar in return because she's angry. And Eradicator like fires beams. She flies at it. She's dodging. She lands at its feet, roars, grabs it by the hair, flies straight up through like the concrete. They go straight up they go straight up through LexCorp. So they just happen to be right directly beneath LexCorp, the building. And they go out to the top, like up in the sky. Then she turns, slams it down into the ground. Bizarros with like some creature. I forget what this creature was. Like some, I don't know if it was. I think it was the wolf creature thing that was in that area with it. So I guess they're friends now. So he's like reading a Jimmy Olsen comic on a rooftop when they feel like shudder, and he like gets up and he sees like smoke in the distance. Down below, Jonathan and Lara fly up. Clark's tries telling him to wait, and Lois like, our children are so disrespectful. So Clark sees a way for him to climb like through the rubble, so they can try to get out of underground. Meanwhile, Waller's watching from the window. There's a big crater outside, and she's like, bring your monster to heel, Luther. And he's on his knees with his like hands behind his back, so I don't know if he's like cuffed or anything like that. He's like, I can't stop it. And she's like, don't you two share a brain? What happened to direct mental control? Kara, Jonathan, and Lara are standing by the rubble that the Eradicator is buried underneath, and it starts climbing out. And Lex like, I already told you, the system is incomplete. It won't respond to my commands. And then it's like, wait, does it have 3 arms now? So it grew another arm. So it swings at Kara, but I think she zipped back out of the way. Jonathan moves too, and Lara moves and grabs it, but it grabs both of her legs, slams her down against the ground, then tosses her against the building. Jonathan's like under some rubble for some reason. It's like, wait, what happened to him? He calls out Lara's name. He flies to her, but the Eradicator slams a giant foot down on top of him, repeats a couple times, and then kicks him up in the air. He lands by Lara's like unconscious body, and then he starts calling out to her when he sees her, because like, is she alive? Is she not? Eradicator comes up ready to slam a giant fist on top of them, but then Kara shows up to block his attack again. And she's like, I am your opponent. Because, she's going to sacrifice herself. She's like, don't hurt the kids, focus on me. So she pushes back and she sends it sliding a bit. Lois and Clark have made their way through the rubble and like the smash tunnel. This big piece of concrete like shakes loose and falls right towards Lois, but then it gets stopped by Clark. So he managed to barely hold up this like big chunk of debris, and then she moves out of the way. He rolls out of the way. So and after Lois moves. Kara flies the Eradicator ready to kick it, but it moves its head and then dodges. It delivers a massive punch to her body, and she like falls back. And then he punches her a couple more times, and she tumbles through the air, but then like stops herself, flies back at it. Boom! Jonathan's like watching. He's like, he's evolving too fast for us. We've lost. So Lara's still knocked out, and he's like, just like that other Jonathan. It's like, there's nothing we can do. See, and then he gets punched in the shoulder. He's like, ow. It was Kara. She's like, you are not the only one who has seen a different world, Jonathan. I have seen other futures. We can still choose a better tomorrow. So he's like a little surprised. He turns and he looks at the Eradicator, like catching its breath. It roars. She's like, stay here. I'll show you. So she goes up to it and she gives it an uppercut. She kind of floats back and then delivers a flying kick to its body. Lois and Clark make it out from the rubble, so they're outside now. Jimmy comes up to them and they watch as Kara continues punching and blocking. And Clark's like, she's alone with that thing. So he takes off his glasses and Lois like, Clark, you can't. That's a job for Superman. So he watches two fight. It slams his two fists and down. She blocks it. She starts glowing red with energy, more glows, more blocking. She twists an arm and causes some massive pain. And it's like, wait, did she just rip off two of its arms? Because then later it's down to two. So I think she must have at this point. So it blasts its heat vision and it hits her right in the eyes, and she covers her face and screams in pain. So it's like, is she blind now? But she seems to recover pretty quickly. Eradicator looks behind her, sees Jonathan and Lara laying on the ground. So it starts building up energy. So Kara can see again, and she watches this the big thing is heading towards the kids. So she rushes out in front because it shot a blast out at them. It's gonna big heat vision, whatever. She rushes out in front of the blast. She gets hit from behind because she's standing there, with her arms out, and Jonathan looks up just and kind of in time to make eye contact with her, and then boom. And she holds her ground in the air. She's screaming somehow. She's somehow able to stay and block it, but the blast is just continuing. And then there's a huge rut in the ground leading up to where she was hit. There's bits of flame on the ground or anything like that. Jonathan runs at Kara's body calling her name. He's like, Kara. He picks her up. It's like, Kara. And she slowly raises her hand to his face, and she's like, you are my better tomorrow. And her hand falls. It's like, she dead? Smoke and dust clears. Clark sees them, runs up to him. He's like, Kara. But he has to stop because, there's more dust and debris starts flying at him. And he's like, Jonathan. The smoke clears. He's like, what? And he has a vision of himself as Superman. He's like, not again. He's like, my family needs me. And the Superman image says, they need me. So flames cover up the image, and he sees the Fortress of Solitude, I think. So Jonathan sets Kara down. He's like, enough of this. So Eradicator starts walking. Jonathan yells. The Eradicator roars. They fly at each other. Fists connect, and there's another big cloud of smoke and dust. Eradicator, he looks to be off balance. Jonathan spins around, gives it an uppercut. So it falls back, and then it sees Jonathan's time travel wrist thing. So Jonathan manages another massive blow, but he didn't realize that the Eradicator took his wrist device off, and it laughs at him. It's like, you lose. There's a big blast, and it's gone. So Jimmy kneels next to Kara. He's yelling. He's like, Kara. It's he's going to wake her up just because he's, she's going to wake up because he's calling her name out. Clark arrives. Lara's still out. Bizarro's there. He lands. He's like, I am too late. And Jimmy's like, she's not waking up. Lara starts sitting up now. Clark and Bizarro stare at Kara. Then in front of LexCorp, Lois goes up to Jonathan, who's kneeling and looking down. And she's like, are you okay? He's like, I couldn't stop it. Eradicator is loose in a time stream. Waller walks up. Behind her are two goons plus Wilson and a smiling Lex. And she asks, so who am I arresting? And Lara's like, what? And Waller's like, we haven't been properly introduced. Amanda Waller, Pentagon. And Lois like, Director Waller, the kids were just following orders. They were sent here from the future to stop Lex from unleashing that monster. And Lex is like, I was defending myself from an assassination. It's like the prototype was never meant to be active at this stage. It's her fault. That everyone's like staring at him. Then he's like, Slade, you tell him. You saw everything. You know what I was trying to accomplish, what we were trying to accomplish. And Slade's like, I tried to tell you, Alex. Waller's like, Wilson, book Lex Luthor. We'll sort out our new guests later. So then Lois like, what are we going to do, Clark? Kara, the kids, the monster? It's like, how are we going to fix this? And he's like, I think I know where my powers are. I think I can get them back. And Lois like, you can bring back Superman? He's like, I think so, but I'll have to leave for a little while. And she's like, Clark, no, you can't leave me alone with these kids. I'll fail them. You know I'll fail them. And Clark's like, you aren't the person who sent them here, Lois. They just need the real you, this you. She's like, but I need you, Clark. Our whole future is getting ripped away. First John, and now, he like holds her tightly. He's like, I'm only going away for a little while. We can't save the future without Superman. So Bizarro brings him to the fortress. They enter. And we hear Lois like continue the conversation. So just, before he left, she's like, promise me, Clark, that you'll come back. One of the robot things eye like starts glowing. Bizarro hears something and his eyes turn red. He grunts and he like knocks out Clark from behind. So it's like, why would Bizarro do that? So somehow it controlled him. But we hear Superman's like, I promise. But in the fortress, a bunch of red orbs surround them along with like some of those robot things. So what happened to Bizarro? Why did it turn on Clark? So yeah, it's just, like I said, it's just like things keep getting like worse and worse. So we'll see what's going to happen next. Right then, X-Men 97, Season 2, Episode 7, Strangeland, Savage Heart. I didn't love this episode. This was fine. And what I'm realizing as I'm watching this season is I don't think this was like my favorite era of comics. Just a lot of stuff. Like the Acolytes show up in here. I've never really cared for them so much. Exodus, Amelia Voight, I think, thankfully, what's his name? Fabian Cortez isn't there. I don't know where he's at. Have we seen him already? Is he gone? But we do see that like Polaris has been added to the intro lineup. So now she's officially in the team. So that's cool. It starts off, we see City on fire, just Genosha, the Sentinels are attacking, Magneto's fighting, so this is all flashback and whatever. And, we see, I don't think we saw this before, but we see Peter, how do you say his name? Peter? Colossus. We see in human form, or non-armored form, Peter and Ileana, they're running out of a building, and he's like, what madness is this? Again, I don't remember if this originally happened, if we saw this part. But then he armors up. And this is where I was a little confused. She changes into her New Mutants outfit. It's like, has there been a New Mutants? Because like Sunspot hasn't been. So she's in her New Mutants outfit, and she has her big, gigantic soul sword. So not just like the regular sword, but this like the big, humongous, flat sword. But they're mixing things up however they want to do that. She teleports people to safety. Colossus throws a car up at like the Tricentennial. One of them turns his head in Ileana's direction, and she holds up her sword, like getting ready. And Colossus calls out to her. She like looks back. The Sentinel shoots out a huge blast at her, and she like just stands her ground. And Colossus tries running to her, but he gets enveloped in smoke. He like calls out to her, and then it's like, okay, maybe she would teleport out of the way. And maybe something happens, she teleports, and Colossus just thought she got disintegrated or whatever, but she's trapped in limbo or, something's going to happen. But no, he goes there, he finds her. At first it's like, is her body injured? No, she's dead. And he like screams out her name. So they kill Ileana. Why? What's the point? I never understand when they do stuff. It's like just such a waste. Then there's like some presidential rally for Graydon Creed, and it's like, he's still around? And that's the other thing, I couldn't stand him. So, Friends of Humanity, or people hold up signs like, no more muties, and then, it tells us this is the present day. So he's like, they say Genosha was a tragedy. I say it was a consequence of a world forced to live in danger far too long. If history has taught us anything, it's that mutants can't be trusted with their powers. And what does President Kelly do? He gives them more, using your tax dollars to fund his X Factor, not to protect you, but to protect them. Well, I say no longer, for I have heard your call, and with your support tonight, I officially announce my candidacy for President of the United States, a leader for humanity. And then there's applause and chanting, whatever. Then the place starts shaking. There's a hole in the ceiling. Big green hand comes, and some like mutants like are jumping down. So we see random. Actually, maybe Fabian Cortez was there. I don't know, because he didn't really do anything in the episode. But there's but Colossus is there, Amelia Voigt, and somebody else. I think Frenzy's there. The Secret Service shoots some sort of laser gun. It just bounces off of Colossus. He knocks him aside, jumps up on stage. Graydon's gets knocked on his bum. He's scared. Colossus holds big handcuffs. 8 Secret Service are pointing their laser scopes at Colossus chest, and he's sorry, but no. They start shooting, but then their guns get pulled from them. Exodus is there floating in the air, and so I'm not really clear what Exodus's powers are. So somehow he made their guns fly out of their hands. So there's a news report. They call themselves the Acolytes of Magneto, an emerging cult of radical extremists devoted to the late Master Magnetism and his vision for mutant supremacy. Moments ago, the Acolyte leader known as Exodus released a statement claiming responsibility for their attack. So Scott and Jean are watching in a bar, I think. 4,621 seconds. That's how long it took for Genosha to be reduced to ashes. And humanity's response is to raise up men like this. So we see Graydon is chained and gagged on his knees. Men who paint targets on mutant kind's back while we mourn our lost. So President Kelly and Valerie Cooper are watching. Magneto understood there is no appealing to humanity's better nature, for you have none. So instead, we make these demands. All mutants currently detained by the race traitors known as X Factor will be released. And we see Rogue and Nightcrawler are watching in the X-Corp conference room. You will remand them to Acolyte custody, and you will stay out of our way. Failure to comply, Graydon Creed dies. I give you 24 hours. So Rogue says Graydon Creed deserves about as much sympathy as a hungry crocodile at a children's petting zoo. And she's but I reckon this can't be simple for you. And Kurt's in our family, sister, nothing ever is. Because Creed is Kurt's half-brother. Such a messed up family. Valerie talks to Charles via a holo. Please tell me that you're not going to try to insert your people into this. I'm already working with the UN to approve activating X Factor. And Charles is you cannot expect me to sit by while Exodus and his followers twist Magnus' name to justify their war. And Valerie's so you have located the Acolyte base? Charles my X-Men are already on their way. Trust me, Dr. Cooper. Where they are going, you would not wish to follow. On the jet, Beast's flying. He's welcome to the Savage Land. So Rogue, Nightcrawler, Polaris, Bishop are on board. And he's one of the Earth's deadliest habitats, a bioevolutionary time capsule quite literally frozen in time. Lauren is reads a file. Prehistoric wildlife, ancient evil spirits. And Rogue's don't forget the leftover experiments from when Mr. Sinister was king of the jungle. Bishop's great, more things that can kill us. Rogue's there he goes, our walking doomsday clock. Bishop's been just sitting there polishing a big rifle. He's always with his eye on the worst case scenario. I may have read your file, Lucas. And he chuckles. So what's your strategy? Cause a scene? And that kind of catches her off guard. I may have read your file too. She's just saying, can't imagine there's anything more dangerous here than the man we're rescuing. Nightcrawler's Creed's actions may be detestable, but I like to believe that no one is above salvation. Rogue turns and looks at Kurt, and then things start to get bumpy. There's this energy field that hits a plane, and Bishop's I don't know if he tried absorbing the energy or something like that, but he lets out this weird grunt, and then he seems fine the next second, but B says that they're detecting familiar energy field is similar to when Mr. Sinister, and they're like, oh no. So Bishop says it's like some kind of radiation, an alarm goes off. 2 missiles are headed like right at them. Beast tries to evade, but their jets get hit, so they start going down. Beast asks Rogue if she can level them out. She gets up, but then she feels some pain, and she starts getting sucked out because there's a hole in the back of the jet now. Kurt grabs her wrist with his tail when she says her powers ain't working. Kurt tries teleporting, and he says that their gifts have abandoned them. Bishop can't hold on. He gets sucked out of the plane. So Lorna unfastens her seatbelt, and she goes after him. She like dives. I think she managed to grab a parachute. I don't know where the parachute came from. If it flew out with Bishop, whatever. But she grabs it, and they both are kind of hold on to it, and they land in a tree. And she lands on top of him. So it's like, oh, I guess they're trying to set these two up as a couple. Just with everything, they're like always paired off. I don't know. So they get up. There's like some vibrations. A T-Rex head toward them. They duck out of the way. And he makes a joke about how it's like, oh, no wonder the place is called the Savage Land or something like that, whatever. Then he bends over in like pain. She's like, are you all right? And he says that before the jet got hit, there was like some sort of energy. And he can feel his powers building up inside him, but he can't release them. And she said that Sinister had an old like inhibitor tower, so the acolytes must have rebooted it to suppress like all their mutant powers. And she's like, how long can you contain it? And he's like, well, let's say I don't got a lot of time left. So they need to find the others and get Creed and get out of there. So at the crash jet, the door is like pried open. Colossus is there. He's like, greetings, comrade. So Nightcrawler is like hanging upside down in his seat with the seatbelt. Rogue says that she almost forgot what pain feels like. So Kurt thanks Peter for answering their prayers. But it's like, wait, Peter's like armored up and they don't have their powers, so it must be they can select whose powers don't work or something like that. Then 4 other acolytes show up on floating discs, and Peter tells them to stand down. He's like, I know these mutants as friends. He's like, what brings you here? And Rogue's like, we're here to rescue your hostage, so you and your acolyte buddies don't start World War III. And he's like, I cannot give him to you. Nightcrawler says that he doesn't understand. Creed is his brother. Rogue's like half-brother. And Kurt says that they share a mother, Mystique, so he's family. And Klaus is like, we do what we must for our kin, but I cannot release Creed. Rogue's like, we may not have our powers here, but we're not just going to turn around. And Kurt's like, Rogue, please. Perhaps instead you will allow us to tour your home and look upon your work. Should we come to understand your cause, imagine the message it would send. So Peter asks if he'll view his home with an open mind, and Kurt says as long as they can ensure the prisoner is being treated fairly. So Peter says that if they treat them with respect, they'll return the same, and perhaps their powers too. So when they arrive, Peter says that they seek a simple life, food, water, and power. Exodus found him in the darkest of places. Each day he's been there, another mutant finds safety. Exodus gives them a purpose and earned their trust. Beast says that his sister would never want him to join the acolytes. Peter's like, how can you know, Beast? How can any of us know the desires of the dead? And they happen to be right by this shrine. There's like a picture of Ileana, and I think some other mutants, like smaller, but there's like a big like painting of Ileana. But underneath there's like above Ileana's picture is even a bigger picture of Magneto. So Kurt comments that it's a beautiful painting of Ileana. He's like, is it one of yours? And Peter says that to honor her, and Rogue says that she's sorry. Peter says the time for sentiment has passed. Each of them must act to ensure that others like them will not lose their brothers and sisters. Kurt says that they shared the same goal. In a cell, Peter tells Graydon to awaken he has visitors, so his arms are kind of like stretched out and strapped. Kurt's like, greeting, brother, and Creed's like scoffs. Peter says that it's a shame that even now he cannot accept his kin. And Kurt's like, he does not treat us as our sins deserve or repay us according to our iniquities. For as high as the heavens are above the earth, and then Graydon says this with him, so great is his love for those who fear him. Then the Colossus, he's like, if you're going to kill me, skip the sermons. So Exodus arrives and says, how painful it must be to be so hated by one's own family. He says that any mutant hands willing to help build their worlds is welcome. Kurt says that in their world, they threatened to murder a man without so much as a trial. He's like, what's up with that? And Peter says to Kurt that he himself was born witness to his sins, and yet he was exonerated by humans at every turn. Kurt says, but they have not had their day in court. Have they? That, these were crimes against their kind, mutants. Exodus says that that's brave and bold to suggest a trial there in the savage land, but to prove what? Kurt says, whether, he should save his brothers beyond, all, hope of redemption. Rogue doesn't want to let Kurt do this, but he says that he has faith that their brother is worth redeeming. So he asks whether Exodus has faith in his ability to prove otherwise. So Exodus looks at Creed. Creed kind of smirks back, and Colossus asks, what if Exodus wins? And Kurt's like, I will join your flock. And Rogue's like, Kurt, don't. He's like, it's all right, sister. It will be a signal to mutants across the world that even an X-Men can see the light. All this I offer with one condition. Colossus will preside over the trial. Bishop and Lorna are at the jet wreckage, so he figures that the others must have been carted off, because you can tell by the tracks or something like that. He grabs a couple of pistols. He says that the place is a fortress, and if they're going to need a big advantage if they're going to bust him out. And she says that she also needs him not to implode on her before they get there. So he says that they better take out that inhibitor tower first. So he gives her a pistol, and when they get closer, he asks if she's got any bright ideas, and she's like, bright? No. What, fun? Hell yeah. So the Court of Independent Haven of our Lord Magnus is in session. The accused is brought out. Creed yells, he's like, I don't recognize this kangaroo court. He's like, no mutie jury's ever gonna let me walk. But then the mutant Senyaka whips him with a psionic whip. And Colossus is like, behave yourself. But it's like, okay, you go into trial and you allow someone to whip him. Peter's like, this court will have order. He tells Exodus to plead his case. Exodus says that Creed founded Friends of Humanity, created a virus that kills mutant, tried to frame a mutant for killing the president. Humans wouldn't make him pay for those crimes. Creed's sins come from one thing, a hatred of mutants. So Creed just smirks. And Exodus says the prosecution rests. So that's this whole case. So it's Nightcrawler's turn. He asks Creed, why does he hate mutants? And Creed's like, how long do you have? So he finally answers. He's like, because you were born. And Kurt's like, and how were you born, brother? Were you born with powers? And chuckles. He's like, heck no. He's like, strange, born with no powers, considering we both were born of a mutant mother, Mystique. He's like, last I checked, she chucked you off a waterfall. And then Kurt's like, and what about that scar? So he has one by his eyes. Were you born with that? He doesn't say anything. He's like, it seems to be a claw mark. Your father? His name is Sabretooth. And he says that man is not my father. Colossus' defendant will take a seat and answer the question. He's like, you got no idea. Think you're the only guy who's had it hard? It's like, our mother booted me as a baby. But Sabretooth, he wanted a cub. And when I couldn't live up to his name, and Kurt's like, he would punish you? And Graydon's like, calls himself Sabretooth. And like, what do you think? Every night, I reminded myself, make it to 13. I'd get powers like he did. Then I could hunt like him. Hell, even better. Kurt's like, but you were born human, and so he abandoned you, just like our mother did. Graydon, you do not hate mutants. You hate the two who hurt you, who failed you, who made you feel like being human wasn't good enough. And even now, with your life on the line, you let them control you. You let them make you risk your life just so you can continue hating them, when all you need to do is forgive yourself for thinking you weren't strong enough. And he looks at Colossus, and Exodus mutters. He's like, oh, enough of this. So he teleports over, and Senyaka pulls him out of the chair, throws him on the ground. Exodus, by Exodus' feet, Exodus, he says, he's like, Colossus, speak the verdict. And he pulls out his big sword, holds it by Creed's neck. And Kurt's like, Peter, please, I know you see it. He is just a man, haunted. Creed squeezes his eyes shut as the sword, is getting closer. It was just pushing against his neck. And Kurt's like, just like us. And Peter's like, I find the defendant. And Curtis doesn't let him answer. He's like, heretic. And he blasts Peter. Beast and Rogue move forward. The other acolytes prepare to block them. Exodus has Peter in the air. He's like, this is how you honor your sister. He's like, fine, let me reunite you with her, so you may see the disappointment on her face. Peter's like screaming in pain. His energy's like whatever zapping him. There's an explosion behind him. Lorna and Bishop are attacking the inhibitor tower. They're on giant pterodactyls, and they both shoot at the tower. It works. So Exodus is like, no. He powers up his fist as the two like swoop down. The pterodactyl get hit, but Lorna and Bishop are fine. I don't know how that happened, but the only thing is they're falling now. So Bishop grabs Lorna and takes the impact of the fall. Then they're standing like ready to go, and he's like, no more holding it in. He's like, let's end this with a bang. His blast knocks the acolytes down. Lorna's removes the armor from like the big brute guy, I forget his name, crumples them and like flings them at the other acolytes and knocks them down. When Bishop starts exchanging blows with one of them, Colossus grabs him from behind the acolyte, flings him out of the building. Graydon tries running but isn't looking where he's going. He runs into Exodus. He still has his sword out, and he's like, your death shall salvage today. So he brings his sword down, but then it gets blocked by Kurt. So Kurt has like swords. He's like, pray you wield your sword better than your tongue, on God. So they're both fighting, and both of them can teleport. So it seems like Exodus, he can do like anything. So this goes on for a bit. The others are still fighting. A gun is like kicked and ends up close to Creed, who's still like lying on the ground. He like glares at it. Everyone else is still fighting. Exodus like psionically like lifts some rubbles and he flings it at Kurt's back. He teleports and Exodus like has like slash at them. And then Kurt manages to get the drop on Exodus and tells him to yield, because he's like holding a sword up to his neck. Because I think Kurt had he had a sword in his hand, a sword in his tails. I don't know, or his tail. Exodus says that his faith will keep him protected from, but then he like falls. Creed stands behind him with the gun. Then he grabs Kurt from behind and he points the gun at his head. And he's like, get me out of this freak show or I'll blow your brains out. And Kurt's like, brother, what have you done? He's like, what I have always done, survived. Bishop calls out to Polaris. She magnetically sends a sword at them, but then Kurt teleports. She was sending the sword at Creed. So Kurt teleports. They end up in the snow, so they're outside the Savage Land, in the Arctic, whatever. And Creed reaches for the gun, but Kurt teleports and wraps his tail around Creed's throat, pins him down to the ground. You cannot conceive, nor can I, the appalling strangeness of the mercy of God. But who more than you deserves to die for the horrors you have unleashed? So Creed like groans. Kurt lifts him up with his tail, and he's like still tightly wrapped around his throat. He's like, for would it really be mercy to spare the monster who would let mutants suffer? Or is mercy found in ending you and sparing us instead? See, alas, this is what higher powers are for. But allow me to grant you this, brother. You may not be a mutant, but you are very much your parents' son. So he releases him. Kurt like turns his back and teleports away, and Creed's left in the snow. Val Cooper reports, so X-Factor found Creed alone, wandering in the snow. And Charles is like, alone but alive, as promised. She's like, you're playing a very dangerous game, Charles. Cross the line, and our history or not, I'll take away your corporation and your school. But it's like, how? How does she have any, I do not understand. A plane lands by the school, and it's like, wait, where did this plane come from? Because their jet was smashed. This is like some other jet or something. Colossus and Kurt get out. Kurt's like, welcome home, mein friend. Peter's like, I sense you have a question, comrade. Kurt's like, I do. He's like, my verdict? He's like, did I make my case? And Peter's like, no, you did not convince me. But, he reverts to human form, you would have convinced Ilyana. And they look at the school. Then it cuts to Athens. X-Force land like discreetly. They're sneaking in. They sneak into the lab, and they're shocked when they find Apocalypse's skeletal form. And Cable's like, how could this be? And then Jubilee picks up a singed card. She's like, guys? So is Apocalypse dead? Did Apocalypse bring Gambit back to life and then Gambit killed him? That doesn't seem right. But then who's that skeletal form in like Apocalypse's armor? I think actually the episode's out. So next episode you can find out. I won't watch it for a couple days at least. But that was almost the latest X-Men 97. All right, so Batman Cape Crusader is back, and as I mentioned, all episodes are out on Prime, so you can watch the entire second season. It's a good show. It's interesting because it has kind of like the Batman animated series feel. It's like sort of that vague old timey era, but there's little bits of modern stuff, and there's some minor things that I'm not super crazy about, but it seems it's interesting, and it gets a little violent at times, so that's kind of cool. And maybe I don't know, maybe that's why Warner Brothers passed on it. I don't know, but it's pretty good. So I'm just going to do the first episode this week. We'll see if I have extra time some week, whatever, to catch up. But season 2, episode 1, Brute Force. So there's this woman on TV, Hattie Tetch. So they gender bent Mad Hatter. So she's on the TV. She's talking about crime in Gotham, Rupert Thorne's trial, masked vigilante with unknown motives, mentions a new witness for the prosecution. So Rupert Thorne, he's watching from his jail cell, and he's like, that dude needs to die. Whatever. Or he doesn't say dude, obviously, but he's like, that guy needs to die. So Batman thinks about how Commissioner Gordon will bring this guy. His name's Julian Gregory. So the name should sound familiar. How is he going to bring him into Gotham? Thorne gets a visitor. It's Eddie Nigma, and Thorne says that he doesn't like what he's hearing about how his business is being handled and mishandled by him. So Nigma blames Batman. Thorne mentions Gregory and says, the accountant, says he wants him taken care of. Bullock, so again, in this one, Harvey Bullock is evil. And they're not evil, he's dirty, completely dirty. So he got demoted last season. He talks to Detective Flass, who's also dirty. So they used to be partners. So Bullock says, he's talking to him. Flass tells him not to worry, that he'll get his shield back. And then, they're about to enter this conference room, and Renee Montoya is at the door. She stops him, and Bullock's like, step aside, sister. They're so rude to her because she's a woman. And she's like, this meeting is for detectives only, officer, no uniforms. Bullock cries out to Flass like a baby, and he's just like, sorry. Inside, Gordon mentions their case isn't great against Thorne. They have to protect Julian Gregory. Renee says that Thorne's broken every law in the book. So, how does this case come down to one witness? Gordon says that Thorne has deep pockets, and it's their job to protect the city, no one else's. And Flass mutters, he's like, yeah, you and your bat buddy. And Gordon's like, something to say, Flass? And he's like, absolutely not, sir. He's like, on the job, sir, protect the city. So that's the thing. It's they're also so incredibly rude to Commissioner Gordon. He's a commissioner, and it's just so rude to him. So then at this club, Eddie tells a bunch of dudes that they're worthless. He says, they're going to run to town tonight. They're going to show the city. They're going to get the squealer tonight. They're going to take him out. Barbara Gordon's working in her office. Batman calls her, and she's like, oh, hi, let me guess. You need some legal help? He's like, I need information. And she mentions, he mentions the 2 airfields where Gregory could possibly be coming in. And she said, unfortunately, her father doesn't tell her case details. And Batman says that her father's in danger, and withholding this isn't helping him. She's like, okay, fine. I guess in the past he's used Moldoff, and then Batman hangs up because he's driving in the Batmobile. So he shouldn't be talking anyways, right? At the airfield, Renee tells Gordon that he gave a good speech, but he didn't mention the Batman. And Gordon says that he appreciates what he does, but he won't rely on him to do his department's job. He's not built that way. And she says, neither she. The plane lands, cars approach. Eddie leans out, starts shooting at Gregory just as he's about to exit the plane. So dudes with him get shot. Gregory jumps back into the plane, and the pilot gets shot. And of course, he slumps forward on the controls, and the plane starts moving forward. So it's he didn't turn off the plane or anything like that. Gregory jumps out, manages to jump out of the plane. Montoya and Gordon rush to his side, but Eddie's circling back, and he's still shooting. Batman's there. He throws a battering at the windshield, which makes them stop. Both cars end up stopping. Dudes jump out with their machine guns, and Batman's on top of a hangar, just sort of shooting at him. Montoya and Gordon run off with Gregory. Batman jumps down. The shooting starts. Fists flying. One guy gets chopped up by the plane's propellers because it's just moving around now. They start to leave, and then Batman ropes and drags one guy to him, and then he ends up getting shot in the back by Eddie, and he laughs as they drive off. And in the car, So this is what I'm saying. I was violent. One guy gets chopped up. This guy gets shot in the back, and Eddie just, and the Riddler, he's going to be the Riddler. He just laughs at him. The driver's like, "Oh, you didn't have to do that to Jimmy. He never would have squealed." And Eddie threatens him, and because he says that Mr. Thorne's not going to like it, whatever. That things didn't go. They didn't get Gregory. But then the dude asked him, was like, "Well, how are you going to stop the accountant?" Eddie says, "Not to worry. He knows a guy." So in a parking garage, Barbara walks her car. She stops at the door, and she's like, "Dad told me you saved the accountant." And then Batman pops out from behind a pillar. So it's like, how long was he just waiting there? And he's like, "Now I need to know where your father is keeping him." She's like, "Or you can just call him and ask him yourself. He can't give me that information without compromising himself." And she's like, "But I can?" "Of course I can. I'm Barbara Gordon, public defender. I'm always compromised. Protecting Julian Gregory is all that matters right now." She's like, "I don't know where he is. You can find out." And she's like, "Maybe if I cross a bunch of lines that I'm never going to cross," it's like, "I won't spy on my father." She's like, "You can trust me." She's like, "I do. I trust you'll find him on your own without using me." And she closed her line during like that last sentence, and somehow Batman managed to disappear. So it's like, did he go back to hiding behind a pillar? Is he like holding his breath, waiting for her to leave so he can take off? She just like sighs. At the police station, Gordon talks to Montoya in his office. He says that he needs to get the truth, and she's confused. And he says that Thorne knew when and where Gregory was landing. So if they have a leak, he needs her to plug it. She's like, "Sir, if there's a leak in the department, we both know that it's flat." And then Flash opens the door right then. And he doesn't even like bother to knock. He's like, "I thought you wanted to see me, Commissioner. But if you're giving Montoya one of your little pep talks, I can always..." And it's like, "Detective Montoya is your new partner, Flash." And she's like, "Sir?" And Flash is like, "Great. She's more of a looker than the last one." And Gordon's like, "Another thing, Montoya's a lead. I want the two of you on Gregory. Get him to Chandler Arms and sit on him until he testifies." Flash doesn't say a word or react. He just turns and walks out. Montoya gets up to leave, and Gordon calls her. He's like, "Watch your back." So Enigma, he goes to talk to Hugo Strange. So Hugo says the things he makes are expensive. He says something about them also being untraceable. Eddie says once they get rid of Batman, Gotham will be theirs. Hugo takes him to a fridge and gives him a little jar of a green liquid. He says it's power, strength, aggression, all beyond the limits of any man or rodent, flying or otherwise. Eddie asks, what's the price? And Hugo says to consider it a field test. He's like, the Batman is an interesting environmental hurdle, and he'd like to see how his formula does in a human trial. Eddie says that he'll definitely want to see that too. In prison, Thorne is showering in like a fancy bathroom. There's two guards like outside, so he asks for a towel, and he's like, "Towel." He has to ask a second time. One gets thrown at his face. It's the Batman. The two guards are knocked out outside the bathroom. So Thorne looks at him and goes about like finishing up. He starts shaving. He doesn't have his towel on, so he's just standing there naked, I guess. He says that if he's there to apologize for slicing his ear, don't worry about it. It healed up as good as new. Batman doesn't say anything. And Thorne comments and asks, he's like, "Oh, you're strong and silent?" He's like, "This is supposed to turn my spine into jelly?" Batman still doesn't say anything. He's like, "You got it backwards, freak. If you're here, you're the one who's running scared." He's like, "I'm going to beat this rap. And when I do, I'm going to make it my mission in life to burn for that." Batman grabs the opposite ends of the towel around his like neck, around his shoulder, and pulls him tight. So Thorne like drops it, and he's shaving with a straight razor. It's like they're allowing that. So he drops the razor. He's like straining. He's like, "Go on, do it." He's like still straining. He's like, and then Batman, he's like, he doesn't do it. He doesn't kill him, obviously. He's like, "I knew it. You don't have the stones for the real dirty work. That's why I'm going to win." Batman pulls tighter and lifts him. Thorne's like, "Gordon thinks that safe house of his is Fort Knox. He's dreaming. I can put my finger on Gregory anytime, anywhere. Bank on it. The accountant has seen his last sunrise." Batman like tosses him across the bathroom, and he's like naked. It's gross. Thorne looks up, and he's gone. He's like, "You're going to burn, freak." He's like, "Bank on that. You will burn." In the Batmobile, Batman asks Pennyworth which GCPD safe houses are still active. So it turns out there's 3. Outside one of them, Eddie sees Gregory in the window, and he's like in an alley with Dez, the guy who's driving. Dez asks what's the plan. Shoot their way in. Eddie's like, "No, this calls for something much bigger and a hell of a lot messier." Dez is like, "What?" And he's like, "Not what, Dez, whom?" He injects the green liquid into his neck with a syringe, and he like chuckles. Des starts groaning. He gets veins on his face, turns like a pinkish color. Eyes go black, except for like little tiny pupils. His body gets bigger. He's like a hulking brute. Eddie says, he's like, "Oh, you're beautiful." And then he asks him, what do they need to do? And in a deep, like monstrous voice, Des like, "Kill the squealer." So Gregory's stressing. He's with Flass and Montoya. He says that, Thorne can find him here, can find him anywhere. Flass is like, "Relax. Detective Montoya here is on the case." She's like, "We've kept this location a secret, Julian. You'll be fine." And then there's a big bang and a rumbling. Flash is like, "What the hell?" Des is like digging his fingers into the side of the building. He's climbing up. He reaches the balcony, smashes his way inside, dust settles, and he's like, "Time to die, squealer." Flash actually guides Gregory behind the sofa, and there's also a couple uniformed cops in there too. They pull out their pistols. So they shoot, zero effect. Des slams his fist down on one and swats the other side. The other dude keeps like shooting until Des grabs his gun and smashes like his hand with it, just like squeeze it, slams him against the floor, and then like he throws him across the room. Montoya and Flash start shooting. Montoya's on the radio for backup. And then Batman comes through the hole in the wall and kicks Des in the back. Flash sees him. He starts shooting at Batman. Montoya's like, "What the hell are you doing?" Then Des like swats Flash aside. He's like, "Ha ha." Des knocks the couch out of the way, grabs Gregory. Batman flies down on him again, throws a batarang, which does nothing. Montoya takes like Gregory out of the room, and she's like, "Move your ass, Calendar Man." So she stands in the doorway, like shooting. Gregory starts running down the stairs alone, and he's like, running down a hall, but then he gets cut off because Batman and Des like smash through the ceiling. Des almost seemed like he was like kind of knocked out, but then he like stands up. He's like, "Kill the squealer." And Montoya is back. She's shooting some more, and she tells Gregory to move it. Des is about to reach for her, but then he stops in pain. Batman got his like grappling hook into his hand and starts like pulling it back. Des yanks on a cable. Batman flies over towards him, but then goes over his head, wraps the cable around Dez's throat. Des like struggling, starts like slamming Batman against the wall like a few times. Batman takes out a batarang, stabs Des in the shoulder like 3 times. Des grabs his wrist and like slams him against the floor, and then against the wall a few times and tosses him. He like runs after Batman instead of Gregory, and he tackles Batman. They go through a window at the end of the hall, and they're still several floors up. So Des like squeezing Batman. Batman slams his fist against Dez's ears and causes some pain. I don't know if he used his fist or if he grabbed something from his belt. He did something because there's like this like high-pitched ringing. So he does something, which I don't know if he just hit him really hard. Des like slams onto the pavement. Officers outside, they aim their gun at him. He starts to get up, gives a monster swirl, so they just start shooting. He like pounds one officer. Another runs behind like a squad car. He like flips it. I think it landed on top of that officer. He like snarls. Then the Batmobile drives up to him, slams into him. So Batman's driving, and he's like smashes Des against the building. But he's still not out. He starts like pushing the Batmobile back. So Batman shifts into reverse, so Des kind of falls forward. And then he goes into the drive, smashes him again against the wall again. He does this like over and over. Officers are kind of watching Montoya and Gregory make it outside. Batman like guns the engine to keep him pinned against the wall. Des like strains. He starts lifting the front end of the Batmobile up. Batman hits the thrust engine, drives him back against the wall again. So he groans and he crumples, and then the officers run up to him, and then he changes to human form. So the potion stuff ran out. Batman drives off, more officers arrive, and Eddie runs off in the alley. In court, Gregory testifies. He has like a neck brace on and his hands in a cast. He says on February 3rd, I did inform Mr. Thorne that the filings were inaccurate and unlawful. The judge is like, and his response? He's like, Mr. Thorne said, the law is whatever I decide it is. Thorne like glares at him. He's like, then it's Thorne's attorney's turn. He's like, Your Honor, the defense moves for a complete dismissal of all charges. The prosecution's case is nothing more than a collection of tainted evidence brought to us by a police department famous for its corruption and ineptitude. And Thorne like glares at the judge. The judge like clears his throat. The court has reached a verdict. I'm prepared to rule this case. And then cut to Hattie's broadcast over the radio in the Batcave. Batman, Eddie, or Alfred's like, I think he's like dusting stuff. Batman's working on something. And Caddy's, she's like, as this reporter predicted, the case against Rupert Thorne was completely dismissed, despite the best efforts of DA Peter Mitchell, Commissioner Gordon, and our circus of a police department. The day was overwhelmingly Rupert Thorne's. So Batman's not happy. On the court steps, Montoya, Barbara, and Gordon are out there. Barbara asks Jim if he's okay. He says no, he's far from okay. Montoya says that Thorne got to the judge. They should have seen this coming. Flash comes out. He's like, yeah, but you didn't, because you're chumps. You keep thinking Gotham's going to do right someday. And she's like, you need to get as far away from me as possible, Flash. And he like chuckles. He's like, wake up, Nemo. This ain't dreamland. And he walks away. So then it turns out Hattie is there outside the steps as well. So she says that Thorne's exoneration symbolizes the start of Gotham's next chapter. Then Rupert and his lawyer start coming out. Reporters rush to them. Barbara says that she hates this. Gordon says that Thorne's won this round, but if he thinks this fight is over, he's dead wrong. Hattie makes her way up to Thorne, asking if he has a few words to share on this glorious day. He's just like, nice hat. And then when he gets in his car, a driver puts his hand on Thorne's back to help him in or something like that, and Thorne's like, ouch. And then driver in a British accent is like, oh, I'm terribly sorry, sir. Thorne calls him incompetent. And then Thorne's son, who's sitting there, he's like, I knew we'd beat him, Dad. And he's like, we didn't beat them, son. We owned them. Always keep a diversified portfolio, my boy. Diversify, and you can't lose. And it chuckles. He's like, every goddamn one of those suckers belongs to me. And he starts doing like a maniacal laugh. And his kid's like, Dad? He's like, what's so funny? The laughing continues. He's like, Dad, cut it out. You're scaring me. He's like, Dad, stop. Stop laughing, please. And we see the driver like in the front. He squints. We see like, he sees his eyes in the rearview mirror looking back. He's the Joker, right? At the police station, Barbara's on the roof. Jim comes up and he's like, honey, what did you, and she stops him. And he's like, okay. Batman comes out from behind there's a big spotlight there, which is, I don't think is a bat signal. I don't know if they have one, but she's like, you two need to talk and you need to do it without me. And she leaves the roof. And that's the end of the first episode of the second season. So pretty good. Interesting about Thorne. Because I was surprised when Thorne got busted last season. I was like, oh, they're taking him off the board already. I thought, they'd keep him around for a bit. But this just shows, even though he was arrested for whatever charges, he still manages to get out. So we'll see. The next episode, the second episode is called Rocket's Red Glare, and I'm not sure what that's about. I haven't looked at the description, but we'll talk about that next week. Maybe more, maybe not yet. We'll see. All right, Silo, Season 3, Episode 5, Memory. Like as I mentioned, I mean, the show is getting interesting. I feel like things are moving like faster. It's weird because the first we're at Episode 5. The first 2 or 3 episodes of this season, it seemed like things were a little slower. Interesting. I'm enjoying the stuff in the past with Helen and Daniel. I'm just really curious to see like what that means and how that's going to lead to the silos being built and everything. I'm so interested in all this information, even though it's probably out there from the books, and I know the books have veered off a little bit. They're not entirely accurate, but obviously I'm not going to like spoil that because I don't want to know. So I'm really digging this. But then with what happened the end of last episode, it was like, holy crap, what is going on? So I'm assuming you've listened to last week's episode, but the fact that last episode we see that Bernard is still alive. It's like, how is that possible? Because Sims put him in the incinerator. He killed him. He put the plastic over his face when he's all burnt from the not the hatch or whatever you want to call it. Anyways, let's get to it. So there's a flashback. Shirley Knox and they're running to the vault door where like Juliet and Bernard were when they were, when she came in and he was going to go out, whatever. So she reaches the door right when the flames crank on. And she's like, we need to get her out of there. And Knox, tries opening the door, but then Billings grabs him, tells him to stop. He's like, the poison could still be inside. Knox like shoves him back, and he's still trying to turn like the big vault knob thing. And then Hank's there also, he yells at Knox as well. He says, he says that they all want to save her, but, if he opens this door, they have no, but then the fire stops. And Shirley's like, again, she's like, we need to open the door. Billing's like, no. It's like, no one's ever gone in before. It's like the locks don't release for 48 hours after a cleaning. And then someone is looking, I don't know if it's Ossie or someone else is there. And it's like, Juliet's moving. So Shirley looks through the window. Knox like fudge 48 hours. He's like, clear the cafeteria. He's like, we're opening the door. So they run back. So I guess the idea why clear the cafeteria is they're going to open the door. If there's poison, the poison may seep out and it's going to go into the cafeteria area. So get everyone out of there because it should dissipate by the time it gets there. Won't be as strong, but they're still going to try to do it. So Knox, he opens the door, moves back, pulls Shirley like with him around the corner. The door like hisses open. Then they have like scars covering their mouths. It's like, I don't know if that's going to do much, and then they have like some rope. Knox takes a door off the hinges to use like as a stretcher, and they like make straps, and they grab Juliet. Billings yells to Hank that she needs him there. They start bringing Juliet through the cafeteria at the entrance, and then they have to yell at people to move out of the way. They're bringing Bernard. And they make like a pulley like system. They have like several people like holding the ends of the rope to lower like Juliet, and people are watching and they start like singing. In the present, Bernard whispers to Juliet from his bed. He's like that he was told the entire silo was watching as they were being lowered down. She says everyone thinks he's dead, so how did he end up down there? And then you hear, how the fudge you think? Sims is behind her. So it's like, wait, that doesn't make sense, right? So the flashback, the computer's like, Judge Sims, you and your son must leave the vault. Camille can stay. So this is one, this from the last season, whatever. So he gives her a hug outside after the door closes. He just kind of like stands there. And he's probably sad that he was kicked out. And then kid, Anthony, he's like, Dad? And he's like, everything's okay. Mom is safe, and we're going to find a safe place for you and me, okay? And the kid holds on to the duck Pez dispenser that Sims gave him. Then we see Sims sitting, like watching his kid sleep. He hears something, he gets up, he's like holding a pistol. It's Camille. And, he asks if she's okay, and she asks about Anthony. Sims says that he's asleep, finally. I've never seen him like having panic attacks or nightmares or anything like that. Sims he seems like he's like an upbeat kid. He's got his Pez dispenser, he's fine. But Sims keeps like mentioning that he's like so traumatized, and I've never seen it. Maybe they're just not showing us, which is we don't have to see it. But it's like I don't believe him. So Camille says that she can't stay long, but she needed to see him, and he just like looks at her confused, and he's like, "What?" And he's like, "What? What happened in the vault after we left you?" She's like, "Rob, I can't talk about that." He's like, "What do you mean you can't talk about that?" So she takes him in the other room, and she's like, "Did Bernard ever tell you about what happened in that room, or what the voice was, or even that there was a voice?" He's like, "I knew that he got instructions there, but I didn't know how." And so she gives him a look like, "Well, now you know. Like, what do you expect?" And he's like, "And you won't tell me?" And it's like, boo-hoo, poor Sims, being kept out of loop. She's like, "If I could," he like nods and looks away, and he's sad Sims. And he's like, "We came straight here. I haven't been out. I have no idea what's going on." She's like, "It's calm. Bernard and Juliet came back inside." He's like, "Inside? How?" She's like, "They survived the fire, barely." And Sim's like, "Did the poison get in?" And Camille's like, "It doesn't look like it." He's like, "Did anyone try to open the door?" And she's like, "No, Rob, the rebellion was over the second she appeared over the top of the hill, but there are still threats to the silo." And he's like, "Who?" She's like, "Bernard Holland, Lucas Kyle, and Juliet Nichols." So Sim's like, "Are you asking me to take care of it?" She's like, "I'm telling you there's a problem, and we both know that this isn't the first time the head of IT has asked you to handle a problem for them." He's like, "I'll take care of it, okay?" And he like looks at her. "What's the concern?" And she's like, "They know things that could threaten the silo." And he's like, "Things I can't know? That's what you're telling me? Things I can't know?" She doesn't say anything. And he's like, "What's the order of priority?" She's like, "Lucas Kyle is the lowest. When you find him, just make sure he doesn't speak to anyone." He's like, gagging back. And she's like, "Yes. Juliet and Bernard are the greatest threat." And then he's like, "Of the two?" She's She's like, whoever seems likely to talk first. They're both wearing suits walking down the hall, and she's like, honestly, it's too early to tell. So he's like, either of them say anything? Actually, now I'm trying to think back. Was it Camille? I think it was Camille. I couldn't tell if it was Camille. I'm pretty sure, whatever. But she's like, Juliet Nichols is unconscious. Bernard Holland has made sounds, not words. Pain response. He's badly burned. He's like, Nichols? She's like, that suit she was wearing protected her. Holland's had a lot of a burn through. Nichols has some burns where the metal in her collar and wristbands heated up. He's like, and what's your plan if they don't make it? She's like, we don't have a protocol for any of that. But I had plastic sheeting and remain bags placed in the rooms. I don't believe traditional burial would be safe. The poison, he's like, incineration then. She's like, yes, but the incinerator is 140 levels down. And if the bodies are contaminated, and I would have to assume they are, they'll have to be wrapped in plastic before being put in the bags. Protective suits for the porters, clear the stairs, won't be easy. He's like, then let's hope that they live. So Sim's in a suit, he goes into Bernard's room, he's burnt, he's unconscious, and he's wearing like a breather mask. Sim takes the mask off, and so Bernard's eyes start to flicker. He's like, Robert, I know the voice wants me dead, but Then Sims grabs a roll of plastic and starts wrapping his legs, and it's painful for Bernard. And Sims gets to like about his waist or something like that, and he's like, they can kill us at any time, the whole silo. That's what Lucas Kyle found out, what he told me. But Juliet knows how to stop it. And Sims, he had like an almost look of disgust in his face, and then it's a scene where he slams the sheet of plastic over Bernard's face and like rap. And then he's like kind of pacing, and then he takes out a little blade. And then he cuts like the sheets by Bernard's mouth, and he like gasps, and Sims steps back. And he goes with the porters as they carry the body down. And then he talks to some guy down below. He's like, I have a job for you. So we'll come to that later. So then we see Walker is with her ex, Carla McLean. And, this is probably why Carla hasn't been in supplies or whatever. So Carla asks if she wants to go up, be closer to medical. And Walker, she's like, oh, I'm not a doctor. She's like, I can't do anything for her. She's like, down here, there's plenty to keep me busy. Carla says that, there better be an apartment down for them in mechanical because she's not sleeping in this poop hole because they're in Walker's like workshop. And she's like, are you staying? And Carla's like, I was thinking about it. Then Sims walks in. I need your help. And Walker's like, yeah? And what makes you think we're going to lift a finger? And Carla's like, we hate you. And Sim's like, because my wife is the new head of IT and she wants Juliet Nichols dead. Now, if you help me, we can stop that from happening. Walker's like, you're going against your own wife? He's like, in 5 minutes, I'm meeting with a group of porters in the incinerator room. Once they leave, I have to make a body disappear, and I need your help to do it. It's like, the silo has to believe this person is dead. Meet me there or don't. But Juliet's life is on the line. And then she's like, who do you want disappeared? The porters place the body down on the table for the incinerator. They start walking out. Sims opens the gate for the incinerator. The conveyor belt starts taking the body. Then he stops it. He takes off his helmet, unzips the body bag. Bernard looks at Sims, and he's like, how the fudge are you smiling after all that? And he's like, it's the drugs he gave me. And then Walker and Carla come in with a cart bin thing. And she's like, our help comes with a condition. If anything happens to our girl, we let Camille know that you betrayed her, and we toss Holland into the incinerator for real. Sim's like, then let's get moving. Carla's like, hold on. How can you be so certain that your wife won't just handle Juliet while you're down here with us? He's like, because I made sure Juliet Nichols is unkillable. So people are gathering outside medical, and a guy asks, like, is there any news yet? So this is a guy that Sims talked to before. And he's like, why are the stairs closed? And someone tells him the poison, got one of them. And they said it wasn't Juliet. And the other said it was Holland and Bernard. So they had to take him to the incinerator. And then the dude's like, if Bernard Holland is dead, then who's the mayor? Someone's like, what? He's like, who's the mayor? We need a mayor, don't we? Someone's like, yeah. And he's like, and if we don't choose someone, then no, they'll choose for us. And the other's like, who? He's like, we just had a rebellion. We need someone we can trust in charge, right? They're like, yeah. He's like, how about someone who went out and came back. They're like, yeah, that's right, that's right. He's like, hell, I say Juliet Nichols for mayor, yeah? Others agree, and they start chanting, Juliet for mayor, Juliet for mayor. So Walker, she gets some soup or something for Bernard. He's like, it smells like it's burning. She's like, it's not burning. Bernard's like, well, you burnt it last time. And she's like, yeah, well, maybe you're a little sensitive to things being burnt. He's like, did you think of that? And then she apologized. She's like, I shouldn't be so funny. He's like, it's a little. And he says, it's a little hot still. So she sets the bowl aside. And she's like, I got a question. All these other silos, are they all like ours? He's like, I think so. And she's like, so they all have radio? He's like, they do. And she's like, so how come we haven't heard them? He's like, because you're listening to the wrong signal. He's like, bring me a radio and I'll show you what I know. Sims comes in and she's like, is it done? Sims like, Mayor Juliet Nichols just took the oath of office from her hospital bed. They're discharging her this week. Then Bernard's like, which means they've started her on the forgetting drugs. They need to make sure she doesn't remember what she saw in Silo 17. Sim's like, if she's on them too long, she'll forget everything. And Walker's like, then we got to get her off those drugs. And Sim's like, that's going to be hard to do. Camille's got her on a tight leash. And Walker's like, is there no way of reversing it or getting her memories back? Bernard's like, there's talk in the order. And Walker asks, like, what's that? He's like, it's like the pact, but just for the head of IT and their shadow. It gives instructions on what to do when things go wrong. When it describes the use of the forgetting drugs on people, it says it's essential to keep them from artifacts from their past, as these artifacts can trigger memories. And she's like, so that's why you had your goons looking for relics all these years. It seems like I never knew about the order, but the pact says a lot about what's outlawed, but never said why. I'd better get started. And she's like, where are you going? He's like, if we're gonna get Nichols off those drugs, there's someone I need to see. Only hope it's not too late. So this lady goes up the door and it's like open. She looks around. She's like kind of calling out. Then Sim's like, you left your door open. And he's holding her cat. And she's like, does this never end? And he's like, I need you to get these pills to Amy Hansen. She's a nurse attending Mayor Nichols. And he's like, Regina, look at me. And she's like, I don't know her from a bar. So Regina was the former girlfriend of George, who was Juliet's boyfriend, who gave her to watch, when he was killed and all that stuff. And she's like, why would you take anything from me? He's like, I will send you to an intermediary, someone who does know Amy Hansen. And she's like, who? He's like, you will tell this intermediary that at some point Hansen will need to replace Nichols' vitamins with these. And she's like, what are in those? Poison? He's like, it's just sugar. And she's like, what are in the pills she's getting now? It's best you only know what you need to know. Will you do this? And she's like, do I have a choice? He's like, you do. And she's like, and what happens if I say no? My family suddenly gets hauled to judicial. My friend bumps into a raider and suddenly goes over the rail. None of that happens. And she's like, I don't understand. He's like, I'm just asking you if you will help. And the cat gets a little antsy, and he hands the cat over to her. And she's like, I hear your wife's the new head of IT. She know about this? She does not. And she's like, okay. So he hands her the jar. And he's like, now, I'll need you to start trading in relics again. And she gives him like an exasperated look. And he's like, I know. Look, anything that belongs to Nichols, raiders, and agents will look the other way. She's like, a lot of her stuff's been scooped up by those women who dress like her. I'll need something to trade. He's like what? And she's like, something small, maybe with her name on it, her sheriff's badge. And 10 of them should be enough. So then it shifts to Bernard. He asks him, like, where'd you get the badges? He's like, there's a craftsman in the marketplace who owed me. And Bernard's like, you mean he's afraid of you? And Walker's like, 50 silos, all given the same radio. Each silo uses a different frequency. So Walker has a radio open. She's looking at the circuits. And she's like, what did you say they were called again? And Bernard's like, in the book, it calls them channels. She's like, channels, that's right, channels. And then later, she's like, so I've turned this radio to another silo's channel so that in here, we can talk without hearing anyone. And Bernard's like, Silo 1 monitors all the active frequencies, so use it sparingly and in code. She's like, okay, well, I got to go and get some more food. His appetite's returning. So she leaves, and Bernard's like, you heading up soon? And Sim's like, my quarantine doesn't officially end until noon. He's like, what are you going to tell your wife? He's like, she told me to take care of whoever might talk first. That was you. He's like, you sure you don't want to get Nichols off the drugs now? He's like, we can't let it happen too soon after you return from quarantine. And Sim's like, the longer we wait, the more difficult it'll become. And he's like, we can't risk losing you, Robert. You are indispensable. He's like, I'm impressed with how you've handled, well, everything. You would have been a great shadow, but I'm glad I didn't give you the job. Being head of IT is a brutal, thankless, impossible task. It's no better for the shadow. The things that fudging voice in that vault made me do, I thought the greatest risk was from some fool trying to open the door. Camille has it far worse. They had to tell her about the safeguard, and she can't speak about it with anyone. I imagine she's burning alive from the inside. So then he's talking to Juliet in the present or current or whatever, and Sim's like, I went back up and we waited, maybe too long, considering how much you forgot. And she's like, so when I met you in the pump room, you were gonna bring me down here? He like shakes his head. He's like, and Bernard's, says, you were going to talk to me on the radio. And Sim's like, we didn't want anyone coming here, but you and your friend fudged that up. It's like, that dream you had of you and Bernard in the airlock? And she's like, yeah. He's like, that wasn't a dream. It was a memory. It happened. And she looks at Bernard and has a flash of him in a hazmat suit pointing a gun at her. And she's like, no, wait. You had a gun? He's like, yes. He's like, and you were going out to die, right? He's like, yes. She's like, and then what happened? He's like, you happened, Juliet. I said to you, they can kill us all at any time. And you said, maybe not. What did you mean by maybe not? Sims looks at her and she's like, I don't remember. I can't. And Sim's like, it's okay, we have a plan. So then a trash chute door opens like with a thud, and Patrick says that the first time he did that, he just about pooped his pants. Then he asks Lucas, he's like, how come you're not freaking the fudge out? And he says he is, okay? He's like, just in the mines, you learn not to show it. And Patrick's like, oh, is that so the big bad bullies don't pick on you? And Lucas is like, no. He's like, because there's no point. Walker fills in Shirley. She's like, 50 silos? And Walker's like, yeah. She's like, and they're all like us? And she's like, as far as I know. And Doc's like, but there's one that can fudging kill us? And she's like, yes. And she's like, and you've known about this for months and you're only telling us now? She's like, I couldn't tell you, just like you can't tell anyone. Listen, we're safe here, but if anyone speaks about this openly, they will kill us. And Shirley's like, how would that actually happen? And she's like, well, if I knew that, we wouldn't need Juliet. And Shirley's like, why would they kill us? I haven't a clue. All I know is that they could. That's all I need to know. Listen, the reason I'm telling you this and scaring the poop out of you is that I need your help. Juliet's visit to the Digger Void was unanticipated, so it means Camille might go down there looking, and there's something down there that we can't let her find. I have to move it, and it's not light. Shirley's like, how much does it weigh? She's like, about 250, and is a pain in the ass. So there's a pause, and Knox like, you gotta be fudging kidding me. He's alive? Carla opens the door, finds Sheriff Paul Billings. He's kind of sleeping, and she's surprised that he slept there. He's like, well, I wouldn't really call it sleep. She's like, well, there's a hostel 3 levels up. And she's like, everything all right with your home life? He's like, I told you, I needed to see you immediately. This is not immediately. And she's like, really? After all we've been through, you're gonna play the sheriff card? He's like, it's not a card, it's a badge. And yes, I am. She's like, okay, Paul, I came as soon as I could. If Orla isn't here, then I don't know where she is. And Paul's like, straight to the point, she's in the morgue on 62. And she's like, what? She was murdered. Sorry, but I need to keep moving on this. I have to ask you. She's like, it's my fault. It's my fault. Lucas opens a covering for a hole in the wall. And it's like, just like knocked, like carved into whatever. It's dark inside. Asks Patrick for a match. And he kind of complains. He's like, I don't have an unlimited supply. Lucas is like, well, if you just want to fall down the shaft. Patrick lights the match. And then Lucas gets grabbed from behind. Sims shoves him against the wall. He's like, you need to be very, very quiet. and Juliet's behind him with the flashlight. Walker sits with Regina. I think it was Regina. Sims like walks in with Juliet. Walker is like, wait a minute. And she asks, why are they here? And when she sees the others, Sims says that they know too much to be anywhere else. So Juliet starts looking around. Sims asks Walker if they have the relics. So they point to the table. Juliet walks up and sits. There's a box with like a little toy that I think it was, I don't remember if it was her or her dead brother. We saw it like one of the flashbacks. And then there's like this like stuffed dog toy. And, I think she put in her brother's hand, or I don't remember. There's a picture from like the Tour magazine, picture of dolphins. And it seems like anything. And she's like, no, I mean, I know what these things are. I recognize them. I just don't. I think Walker's like, it's okay. And there's like nothing about how to stop them from killing us. And Patrick's like, I'm sorry, who can do what now? And Sim's like, we really need you to be quiet right now, please. And Luke's like, you know about the safeguard then? And Sim's like, yes. And he's like, okay, then they can kill us at any time. And Julia's like, yes, we know, and I can't fudging remember anything. And then he's like, okay, how is the box supposed to help? Regina says the hope is that the box from her past might jumpstart her memory. Luke is like, right, okay, sorry. And he looks in the box, he's like, I mean, they're toys. And Regina's like, I got everything I could. Luke is like, well, what I'm trying to say is that maybe if we got something that's more relevant to when this all started, right? It's like, hey, when we met, yeah, you were asking me the big questions, why we're here, what's it all for? But really, you were interested in what happened to George. When I went down to the bottom of the silo, I found a tunnel that led to a door, and at the door, a voice said that only 3 people had ever been there: Salvador Quinn, Mary Meadows, and George Wilkins. Patrick's like, on the hard drive, there was a guy who was talking to you, and Danny said that the guy was George. And Luke is like, did he say anything about how to stop the safeguard? And Patrick's like, no. He said a bunch of mush poop. He's like, I don't know. And then he said something about he found a door. And Regina's like, he wanted to find that door for a long time. Luke is like, I'm sorry, you also knew George? And she's like, yeah. He's like, well, have you found anything that belonged to him that maybe means something to her? Regina says, like, the thing I wanted to get wasn't gettable. And so someone asked why, and it's like the watch. And then to Juliet, she's like, George gave you a watch. And Luke is like, why was it ungettable? And Sim's like, it was taken from her before she was sent out to clean. Bernard gave it to your father. He was wearing it when he blew up the stairs. And Walker's like, no, he wasn't wearing it. He gave it to somebody else. Hank comes up. He's like, your dad wanted me to give this back to you if I ever saw you again. But you weren't really you when you came back, so I hung on to it. And Juliet's like, right. He's like, there's something I got to tell you, Jules. And she's like, what? And he looks at the others there. He's like, or she's like, they can hear. He's like, no, this is just for you. So he moved to like the front of the workshop. He brings her to back. He unwraps the watch. He's like, he told me to tell you that he loved you. He wanted you to keep fighting. And she like shakes her head and she like looks away. She's like, she's like, no, I don't want to hear this. And he's like, and never stop being yourself because, and she's like, okay. And he's like, because she's perfect, exactly as she is. And she shakes her head some more. And he like puts the watch in her hand. It's like still wrapped up like in a cloth. She opens it, holds the watch, just flashback. George says it must have taken for her hours like to fix it. She puts it on him. We see a tattoo of a seashell. She kisses him. She's lying next to him. And she's like, George. And Sims comes up to her. He's like, you okay? Is there anything else? And she like, no. He's like, then it's time we head up. He's like, I don't know what we're going to say, but we've been gone too long. Camille's going to. And then Juliet's like, did he have anything else? Do you have anything? And they're like, not that we know of. And he's like, hey, we have to go. And they're like, we will keep looking. Carla says to Paul, critical supply can only be accessed by the head of supply or their shadow. So she opens this big door and they go in. Paul looks around, it's like huge. It's like, every item that goes out of here requires 3 different kinds of approval. And the head or their shadow has to be in attendance when those items are pulled. Critical supply contains things that were loaded in here when the silo first began. The kind of things that we can't make more of. That's why it's called critical. So you get what that means? And Paul's like, when we run out, we're out. And Carla's like, exactly. Pick up one of those boxes. He's like, I'll give you a hand. So there's this big metal box. So they move it down. She's like, now pick up that one, the one underneath it. He goes to lift it. It's like super light and it's like empty. She's like, we keep the empty boxes to stop anyone who might get in here from doing the math. The amount of panic it will cause the people if they found out. He's like, found out what? And Carla's like, how much time we have left. So Shirley and Knox, they go to Bernard with the big rope, and he asks if they're going to pull him up. Shirley's like, unless we let go. So he tries moving, it's painful. He looks at Shirley, he's like, you're enjoying my discomfort. For 25 years, I did what I was told I had to do to keep the silo safe. And she's like, so what? You expect us to forgive you for murdering the judge, blaming it on us, telling the entire silo to kill us? Bernard's like, no, I don't. I don't. You both were caught in the middle of an unfortunate circumstance. So when you pull me up, I wouldn't be surprised or offended if you just let me go. Shirley walks away, and Knox starts helping him up. Paul's been looking at the boxes. Finally, he's like, what does this mean? And she's like, 20 years ago, we had 70 years of light bulbs left. Just before I moved to mechanical, about 3 months ago, we were down to 50 years. And he's like, okay, so? And she's like, about a month ago, I did a check, and I found the theft that we've been dealing with in supply for years was also happening in critical supply. And that's when I made Orla my shadow. He's like, because you didn't trust Glenda? And she's like, Carla's like, Glenda is capable, but prickly. But Orla, she's from a long line of supply siders. So I knew I could trust her with a job and with something else. He's like, you asked her to help you find out who was stealing in critical supply, and you think that's why she got killed? It's like, Carla, if we can't find those light bulbs, how long do we have? And at first it's like, what's the big deal about light bulbs, right? But she's like, with what we've got left, 2 years. After that, we won't be able to replace the ones that go out in the farms. And when they go, our food goes. So it's only a matter of time before we die in the dark. Juliet and Sims are walking up the stairs. Juliet's like, what do you think Camille is gonna do when we get there? He's like, I don't know. And she's like, maybe you should put me in handcuffs and make a scene out of it. And he's like, she wanted you dead. Handcuffs aren't gonna cut it. And Juliet's like, well, one big shove and I'll go over the rail. I mean, we have enough time, right? He's like, nah. He's like, I'm tired. So after a few steps, he stops. She's like, you okay? He's like, yeah, I'm sorry. There's something I got to tell you. It might not be anything, but since that night you went into my apartment, something changed in my boy. Maybe in me too. And she's like, okay, look, I'm sorry. He's like, it's not that. She's like, I don't know why. He's like, I didn't bring it up for that reason. And I gave him something, told him it'd keep him safe. And it kind of became our thing, like a secret between us. And the more Bernard talked about artifacts being able to trigger someone's memory, the more I convinced myself that this thing will help my son remember me if Camille released the vitamin D. Like it was going to perform some kind of magic or something. But it wasn't mine to keep. It was yours. George gave it to you. And he takes out the Duck Pez dispenser. She takes it. And he's like, was it important? She looks at it, flips it back, pulls it, lets go, and then a flashback. So George is like, and in a world filled with a million unknowns, it is possible that this watch and crazy relics like these are the key to answering all the silo's biggest questions. And she's like, what's left of the machine that dug the silo? And then there's images of Juliet going down a rope, the hard drive, the video. And he's like, you would have killed everyone in the silo? And it's like, what silo? There are 50. And it's like, it's a pipe. And she's like, the safeguard is a pipe. Why did they have to cap it? And then, what's his name from the other silo, whatever. He's like, it had poison in it, enough poison to kill everyone, all 10,000 people. And she looks at Sim. She's like, I remember. at the same time, Camille and a couple raiders are running down the stairs. I don't know how far away. She's like, there's poison in a pipe. It comes from outside the silo. It's like, they capped it in 17. They fudging capped it. Sim's like, where does it come in? And she's like, I don't know. I have to talk to the others. And he's like, go. She starts going down the stairs, and he stands there like and then starts back up. He reaches a gap. Camille slowly walks up to the platform up above and looks down at him, and they just like stare at each other. So it's like, what is he going to say to her? And then in the past, so it's like, we haven't seen Daniel and Helen the whole time. So he finally get to them. And again, is it I'm assuming it's the past, but I was like, maybe it's not. Daniel and Helen are in a minivan, and he's like, so I'm at the call center and I get a call, which is weird because I didn't know you could get incoming calls in that system. But Sam did 2 years in the NSA, so he knows poop. And Helen's like, he's got magic beans. Yeah, what did he say? And Danny's like, who's the #1 advocate for AI control who also happens to fund the clinic where my sister's trying to rebuild her memory? Helen's like, Per Stenson. And Danny's like, want to take a guess at where Per Stenson was the night of Operation Righteous Vengeance? She's like, on the Nimitz? And he gives her a look. He's like, it's usually based in San Diego, but it's been in Norfolk since it got back from Iran. Sam knows someone on the base who's willing to talk to us off the record. And she's like, what changed his mind? Daniel's like, I'm guessing Charlotte, just knowing what she means to me. I'm like, I know Sam. We didn't just play in a band together. We got shot at together. And I've rarely heard him this scared. I was like, okay, you think that all this has to do with AI though? He's like, I don't know. But the other carrier groups that night sent out 20, 30 sorties, and a Nimitz sends out one with 4 planes equipped with pre-digital comms, and then something happens, the car suddenly takes a major sharp turn. And Helen's like, Jesus. She's like, a little warning next time. And Daniel's like, that wasn't me. And she's like, what do you mean it wasn't me? He's like, I'm not driving. Someone else is. He takes his hands off the steering wheel. And it's like, oh, crap. So even though they took this random minivan, who knows who it belongs to, they still got caught. So that's where it ends. So next episode's out, man. I'm ready to start watching it. So I don't know what this means. We'll find out. All right, then the movie feature is One Night Only. This was kind of a weird movie. It totally caught me off guard. Now, I don't remember what I said about this. Okay, so I saw the mystery movie. I had no idea I was going to see this movie. I saw the trailer. Actually, you know what? Let me watch the trailer again. Okay, so I just watched the trailer again because the trailer leaves out one little thing. I mean, I guess it's the facts are in there. So basically, here's what the movie is about. It's like some weird, it's alternate world where basically premarital sex has been outlawed. You are not allowed to have sex unless you are married. Yes, there's a question, how exactly do they monitor, how do they they tell, maybe there's ways, I don't know. But, and we can talk about it. So I should go back. When I went to see this movie, so I went to the mystery movie, $5, some random movie, all I knew was rated R. And the annoying thing was, the movie was supposed to start at 7 o'clock. I got there, I have my assigned seat. I get there, it might have been like 6:57. I don't think, I feel like maybe it was earlier than that. I don't know. But by the time I got in before 7. I don't know if it was like 5 minutes before 7, but it was definitely before 7. I'm going to give the theater the benefit of the doubt and say it was like 3 minutes before 7. The movie was already on. And so as I walk in this dark theater, I'm like, oh, this must be a trailer. But then it's like, I go to my seat in the dark. And it's like, no, this isn't the trailer. This is the actual movie. It's going. So I don't know how much I missed. I don't know if I missed 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. They started early. And what would be annoying for other people, because then these other people come in, like these two guys came in next to me. They're like talking to her. I was like, do you not realize this is the movie? And then other people came in after that. They probably have no idea what's going on. So what is happening in this movie, as I said before, premarital sex is outlawed. And I think it's been a few years or something like that. A law passed. You are not allowed to have sex unless you're married. And I don't know if it's just in New York City, if it's the world, or what happens. And the way there's one day during the year that you are allowed to have as much sex as you want if you are not married. Only one day. And that's what this is. Because in the trailer, you see the main Monica Barbaro. She was in Top Gun Maverick, and she was in something else, I don't remember. But it's like basically her and Callum Turner. They're like the two main. And so Allie, she's going out with her friend, and they're gonna go out and try to find someone, try to find the right person. But the idea is like, how do you find true love on like the least romantic night of the year? That's exactly what they say in the trailer. And I was thinking, is like, what is this, like Valentine's Day or something? Where it's like some cliche. I didn't realize when I saw the trailer that it was outlawed. And I guess they do mention it. Maybe I missed it. I only watched the trailer once. Now, the other thing that they don't tell you in the trailer is that everyone has like a censor tattoo or something like that. So you get a tattoo on your wrist that changes color. And I think actually it's not 24 hours. I think you get like maybe 12 hours to do this. So you pick, I think you can pick whatever design you want. I don't know how exactly it works because I didn't see that part of the movie, but because they had different symbols. And I guess it's normally, if you are single, it is normally red. And during this 12 hours, it turns green. Or if you're in a relationship, it's green, I guess. So I don't know if there's ways to detect if it's triggered into like your hormone levels or anything. If there's some database or some computer system tied into everyone, and I don't know if it sends out a signal that someone is getting too excited and they have a red tag. I don't know anything about this. So then the thing with Callum Turner, Owen, he is dating Maya Hawke, and he's got this dinner, this night planned, and he's going to propose to her. But it turns out she wants to test the waters. She wants to get a little experience. She wants to see what things are like out there. Because maybe, I don't know if, I remember she said she's never been with anyone or whatever. Whatever. So he's like, obviously rightfully upset. And she's like, I'm sorry, I got to go. And she leaves. He's not planning on doing anything. And eventually they kind of like, Owen and Allie kind of meet up. They're not really planning anything, but then he's like, well, maybe I should. And whatever, and in the true spirit of rom-coms, whatever, they don't really get along so well in the beginning. They kind of annoy each other, and there's different things, but they're like, let's go on this journey together, and maybe we'll find someone, because there's some people going to a party, so they're going to follow them and whatever, and stuff like that. So they keep like running. They run into each other a couple times, and then they agree to like, let's just go together to try to find something or whatever. And that's kind of what the movie is about. And as they're kind of bickering and everything like that, you as a viewer, you're like, you kind of want to root for them. It's like should be a couple, because these are the two characters that we're invested in. And she's a really nice person. She has her. She's like a singer, and she sings jingles. And the only reason I bring that up is because she sings "Only You" one time, and she does such a great job with it. I mean, I was impressed. And there's that whole scene was something. There's a reason, whatever. And he seems like a nice guy, and he, his almost fiance ends up wanting to do other stuff. So yeah, you kind of root for them, but it's like, and then the things don't quite work out, and then there's so many things, and it's just like, really, this is what you're gonna do? So it's a bizarre movie, and I don't know what else to say about that. But for some reason, the critics don't really like it. I don't know if I mentioned. I think Rotten Tomatoes is like at a 50%, and last time or when I just checked, and so maybe it's like too early in the weekend. Which is weird because there's no popcorn meter rating. So you would think at this point there should be. I don't know when exactly, because there are like user reviews on the page. I just glanced at it before I started recording. So there are user reviews. So I could read a couple of them. You can see, positives, negatives, whatever. But also the fact that this movie has been out for like a week and a week and about a week and a half before it opened in theaters, because I don't know how many other mystery theaters, or mystery movie things they do, but the fact that this is a surprising thing, because the fact that they allow this movie, and I'm assuming the studio has to be on board with this, because they're allowing a bunch of people to watch the movie early, where they can spoil things, they can talk about things, they can review things. They want that word of mouth, and plus they're charging people $5. So there's the theater I went to was a smaller theater, but it was supposed to be full, and that's the other annoying thing is I ended up buying my ticket late, so I was like, okay, I got an aisle seat because it was like almost full. There was like hardly any seats left, but I went. Some people maybe just must not, or decided not to go. I don't know. So all these people, I guess the thing is, the people that were in that theater that paid $5, would they have gone to see it normally and paid $15 or whatever? Or would they say, yeah, I'm not going to watch that? Like the two guys that sat next to me, they seemed into it, except in the beginning, they were kind of talking a little bit. I don't know if they would normally go, maybe, but... So I don't know. It's just weird, how much money did they lose? And then if there's word of mouth from this, how come it's not on Rotten Tomatoes? So that's what I don't understand. Molly Ringwald is also in the movie. She plays Owen, Callum Turner's mom. LeVar Burton is in it. So it's a good cast. See, there's no budget for this as I look. It says it's made $1.4 million, so it's probably not going to make much. Because the thing is, I was looking like with so Monica Barbaro. She was good in this. She's working stage and screen. 2 Actors Award nominations for an Academy Award? For what? Oh, that was it. She was in A Complete Unknown, the Bob Dylan movie with Timothy Chalamet, right? Was he in that? And she played Joan Baez. So she got she was nominated for Best Supporting Actress. Okay, so yeah, I still haven't seen that. At Midnight, she was in that movie. She was on some TV stuff, Unreal, Chicago PD, Chicago Justice, The Good Cop, Netflix comedy series FUBAR. So she's been a bunch of stuff. Callum Turner, I don't know if I know him. Let's see. He was the brother of Newt Scamander in the Fantastic Beasts movies. So he was Theseus. He was in some other stuff that I haven't heard of. You don't have like big star power, and no offense, they were great in this. You got Maya Hawke, was a minor role, so people know her, and Molly Ringwald, minor role, and LeVar Burton, minor role. So it's not like there's like a huge draw to this movie. The director is Will Gluck. He wrote and directed Easy A, Friends with Benefits, the Peter Rabbit films, Anyone But You. So, yeah, it's, yeah. Let's see, reviews. Rotten Tomatoes, the movie's hampered by a high concept premise that's full of red flags. One Night Only has charming moments thanks to its appealing stars, but keeps killing the mood with world building that prompts more questions than the script is willing to answer. I don't think I agree with that. Some critics noted that the film's premise of a dystopian society run by conservative capitalists makes for an interesting one and is not too far from the reality of current events in the United States, but that in the film, the premise is too nonsensical and distracting. I kind of agree with that. Because again, the main thing is, how is this exactly enforced? There's one scene in a police station where it shows like these things are illegal, and it's like different like positions and stuff like that. And I forget if like masturbation was illegal too. I don't know. Yeah, but it's like how do they figure this out? Let's see, RogerEbert.com panned the film as in a 0-star thumbs down review, saying, if this is what it takes to get a rom-com greenlit these days, maybe we should just let them die. Death with dignity is surely better fate than the genre than fascist capitulation. See, that is just ridiculous. And this is why I don't read reviews except for these little snippets, because I just, it is so ridiculous seeing all these reviews, and I keep Reddit keeps suggesting me this. There's a reviews subreddit, and I haven't joined that subreddit, but because I stupidly read some of them, it keeps suggesting, and I keep seeing these reviews for like the Odyssey, and people are like, oh yeah, the movie's so bad. I read it in high school, and it wasn't like this, and I didn't like the way they talked or the way this happened, and it's like. Basically, I keep reading these reviews because it's almost like comical in a way, where it's like they're saying the same things. So it's like, are these reviews even accurate? Is someone just trying to be negative, and it's like they're using the same script? And I know I'm not supposed to be talking about the Odyssey now, but it seems weird. And what I mentioned when I saw the Odyssey, I never read the Odyssey. I have no no horse in the race or whatever. I don't care about the Odyssey. For me, the movie was great because I was entertained, and I thought the performances were great and the spectacles, and I just loved the presentation and everything like that. So was it entirely accurate? I don't know. It's no concern with me. I'm not going to go and read the Odyssey. So it doesn't matter to me how accurate it was. I'm not that invested in it. But it's like all these people, I didn't realize there's this like cult of Odyssey fanatics that are so passionate about preserving the true ancient philosophy. I don't know. But yeah, so this I don't know, this movie is fine. A negative review, the film Maven said, in a landscape where people are being urged to have children, Roe v. Wade overturned, and feminine contraceptives being questioned at every turn, this film about a band of premarital sex may have the potential to be funny, but as the film goes on, the premise becomes increasingly inept and shoddy. See, I don't know. These people are too uptight. Hollywood Reporter, David Rooney was more mixed, says, luckily for director Will Gluck, who is tasked with turning this flimsy concept into fizzy fun, he has two charming leads in Monica Barbero and Callum Turner. He complimented the film's cast, particularly Ringwald and Burton. I don't know. I thought it was cute. I thought it was fun. I think it was weird. This whole censor tattoo thing is weird. There's some absurd moments, but that's like what the rom-com movies, a lot of times they do this. It's like weird situations, and just the whole concept it just caught me off guard. I was like, I did not realize that's what this was about. And you know, I maybe also because I saw it for $5, but I thought it was something different, and that's the other thing I like. And you know, I've said this before. Every once in a while, when I see a different type of movie, it's kind of refreshing way. And you know, don't get me wrong. I saw Spider-Man Brand New Day again this week. You know, I saw it, and I don't think I'm going to talk about that. I know I said I don't know if anyone cares for me to go on about it, but I love the big spectacle movies. You know, I just something like this every once in a while. I want something different, something a little lower, lower stakes in a way. But there's something kind of refreshing about this, and because even though it's silly, whatever, it is kind of character driven in a way. So you get invested. You got these two characters and their adventure on this night, and like, what's going to happen to them? Are they going to get together, or are they going to pull the rug out from beneath us? Because that's the whole thing. You assume, because when you look at the trailer and everything like that, it's like, oh, Hollywood ending. They're going to get together, right? May not necessarily happen that way. I'll tell you that right now. Don't go expecting that necessarily, because you might be. I shouldn't be saying that because I'm kind of spoiling things, but that's the thing. You never know, and with a movie like this where it's like anything goes, you never know what might happen, and that's what I look in these movies. While you think the predictive ending, but they may, no one wants to necessarily do the predictive movies all the time, because you look at the majority of rom-coms, they are predictable. You get those movies every once in a while where things are a little different. It's like, we don't get happy ending. Life isn't about happy endings. So bravo to taking a risk, to giving something that is probably going to upset some people. But then if you do have the happy ending, then people are going to be upset. It's like, that was pretty predictable. So I'm not going to tell you what happens, but you should see that. Let's do some other reviews. Let's see. I don't know if I should do critic reviews. There's some positive ones, maybe. Let's see. Breakfast All Day. This is a weirdly, creepily conservative anti-sex movie masquerading as a saucy rom-com. Time Magazine. This is a great New York movie, one that captures all the beauty and dumb grit of this fantastic, weird city. Okay, that doesn't really say much. Little White Lies gave it a 5 out of 5. Seldom does a film offer this much food for thought with no intention of eating any for itself, leaving us to gorge. Sex Purge is, in a final analysis, mostly fine. It also demands 50 sequels. I don't know about that. That's the thing. It is kind of like The Purge, but about sex. One Night Only, this is from The Pitch. One Night Only is going for neither profound nor spectacular. It's going for warm and fun. It mostly achieves that, even if it's under really bizarre circumstances. See, exactly, I totally agree with that. The Scarecrow gave it a 3 out of 4. I enjoyed the momentum and the sense of zany adventures unfolding to a countdown clock. And then Flickering Myth, 1.5 out of 5. Not only do the characters inhabit a world of brainwashing, but this regressive rom-com itself is also intent on doing that. I don't know. Eric, some dude named Eric, gave it a 5 out of 5. This was a really enjoyable movie. It's silly, but in a romantic comedy type of way. Had some great laughs and didn't have any something. That's where it cuts off. Mark C. gave it a 4 out of 5. I enjoyed this film. It was funny and sweet. See? Daniel, and those are a couple dudes. Daniel. I always say Daniel Fendur, 4 out of 5. Deliriously enjoyable and much more entertaining than I expected. Hunter, 4 out of 5. Rom-coms on the big screen are a rarity, and we got to appreciate them when we do get one. Very fun watch, had me laughing, ... Bethany L, 3 out of 5. Wanted to love it, but it felt a little too ridiculous. And to me, that was fine. Julia C. gave it a 5. I loved it. Callum Turner and Monica Barbera were amazing in their roles. So you make the choice, you make the decision. But I think, it's something different. Should you see it in the theater? You absolutely do not need to. Should you see it in the theater? Yes, you should, to give this movie some more box office. I think it deserves it because it's a cute movie, it's a fun movie. You should definitely check it out, something a little different. So yes, you saw The Odyssey, you saw Spider-Man. Go see something a little different, something that's a little possibly romantic, maybe not, but it's definitely different, and I like that. And the performances were good, and it is kind of neat. I'm not a New Yorker by any means, but my time going to New York Comic Con and even like New York Toy Fair, I know I probably talked about this before, but every time we'd go to either of those, or every time I would go to either of those, I would always walk from the Javits Center to my hotel, which was usually maybe like a couple miles away. And with Comic Con, it was nice because you get out of the bustle. You're going through Hell's Kitchen and then getting to another part of the city. And usually I would stay at this hotel right, like maybe a couple blocks from Central Park. So if you know the city, you know the layout. I don't know if that means anything. I don't know how far down Central Park it was, but sometimes you'd walk through Times Square and everything. So it was a lot of fun. I'm not really a city person. I never go into San Francisco. I love San Francisco. It's a great city. It's a different city, and it's different from San Francisco, Chicago, New York. Those are like my main cities. You can throw in Seattle. I would walk through there a couple times, not really so much, but from Emerald City Comic Con, but. You're walking through New York City, there's something about it, and even when it's late at night and there's people out, and there's something about it. I will say, I'm not one to say, oh, it's the greatest city in the world. Some people are just so fanatic about that. Whatever, that's their pride, or that's their choice. But you do get a lot of seeing the city, and I don't know how much of it was actually filmed there or whatever, but they do a good job representing it in this weird and wacky world and night and everything. So I think it's worth seeing, and seeing it on a big screen can be fun because you can enjoy more. But yeah, it's not crucial to see it, but like I said, I'm really rooting for this movie, and I don't know what the budget was, but I think it could be. I would like it to be successful. Let's see if I can find out. What was the budget for One Night Only? I don't know if anyone knows this. The specific budget for Will Gluck's 2026 romantic comedy One Night Only is not officially disclosed or specified in available search data, though industry discussions estimated to be a standard low to mid-range romantic comedy budget comparable to the director's previous $25 million budget for Anyone But You. I don't know. Is it a $25 million budget? I don't think it. It might be, because if they. Well, see, okay. It's weird, interesting. This is what Google AI says that they don't know. But then there's a Forbes article that says with a production budget of $25 million. Before marketing costs, Anyone But... Wait, is this right? Oh man, this website, I cannot read this website with the pop-ups. Oh, never mind, that's Anyone But You. Okay, that's not this. I was like, wait, how could it have all this money? So it has nothing to do with this. Okay, but what's interesting, you're looking at this Forbes article, there's a little information, which this is what I must have missed. The film takes a purge, again, this is Forbes.com, so I'm giving them credit. The film takes a purge approach, which I mentioned to the story, but instead of one night of unenforced killing, the government imposed mandate allows singles over the age of 18 one night of premarital sex as they use protection. So that's the other thing. I didn't mention that, but that is a huge thing. You have to have protection. And you can imagine in a night like this, protection is in high demand. As such, everybody in the country, so it is a country, see, I wasn't sure about this, everyone in the country has a tattoo on their wrist so the government can detect spikes in dopamine to alert them of illegal sexual activity. Caught up in the mandate in New York City are Allie, a Lovelorn commercial jingle singer, and Owen, a pizza shop owner, cruelly kicked to the curb by his girlfriend, Malika Maya Hawk. Okay, so it's like I said, it's super cute movie, and it's weird. And again, it's The Purge, but with sex and romance, possible romance, or just sex. But it's not like a gratuitous thing. I mean, it's about sex, which is why it's R-rated. But yeah, so it's not for the kids, but it's a cute movie. So definitely, you should see it. I think it's absolutely worth watching as something different, and I'm so glad I saw it. I would, and here's the other thing. I would have seen this anyways because Ice Cream Man did not come out, and I guess I should be happy that I was not able to see it Thursday. It's showing one night only, one showing only, which is so bizarre. But I would have gone to see this movie if I hadn't seen it the week before. But I'm kind of glad that I saw it early because then I got to go see Brand New Day with my daughter. Okay, so that is going to be the podcast for this week. I'm going to talk about Spider-Man really briefly, but big thanks to Andrew Loken. He is a big supporter of the show. You can be a supporter by going to patreon.com/gmanfromheck. Any amount you can commit to will be awesome. If you commit at the Rick Jones here or higher, you get access to that secret podcast from Heck, which is an additional 30-ish minutes of podcast entertainment every single week. I'm probably going to do another wacky comic look back this week. I will be doing an Off My Mind soon in the coming weeks, whatever. But if you can't commit to monthly commitment, you can also help out by going to coffee.com/gmanfromheck, and you can buy me a virtual cup of coffee or two. ko-fi.com/gmanfromheck. Okay, but what I will say before I get into like what's next week or anything, I'm not gonna go in depth. I'm not gonna do like a second viewing of Spider-Man Brand New Day and I noticed this or whatever, because I don't know if people want to hear it. It's so weird. I've talked about this before, but whenever the big, huge blockbuster movies are out, you would think that's going to be a big, popular podcast episode because people are going to see the movies. They're going to want to hear about it. They want to hear what I had to say. Did I notice anything? Blah, blah, blah. Insight, this and that. But it's pretty much the opposite. Whenever there's a big, huge movies, those episodes get less downloads than like normal. I've often wondered, maybe these big popular things, maybe people are, even though I don't spoil things normally, but I've always wondered, maybe people are avoiding any sort of spoilers and they'll possibly listen to it later. Because I don't always go like long term and like, oh, this podcast episode was 6 months ago. Wow, the numbers bounced up. Maybe, I don't know. It's possible. But with this one, for the longest time, it's almost equal to what would be normal, which whatever. But yeah, it's weird that they don't do well. And in the past, I don't know if it's going to happen for this week. I hope so. But in the past, it's usually been these smaller, obscure movies get more views, get more downloads, and maybe it's because the audience. Or maybe because people want to hear about it and there's not a lot of options. I'm sure so many people have been talking about Spider-Man Brand New Day. Whatever podcast you listen to, right? Everyone and their mom has been talking about Brand New Day. So maybe then it's like they're not going to listen to it. And maybe for like one night only, maybe there's not a lot of people talking about it. So if someone's seeking out, it's like, I want to hear about that movie. Maybe someone will come across this podcast. Maybe not. But what I will say, man, I was in tears again. Even though I knew what was going to happen and everything, I was like bawling. I'm like, oh my God, it's just like, Peter. Oh. And the other thing is, my daughter did not cry. I asked her, did she cry? She's like, almost. I was like, what? And this is something, we were both in tears in Project Hail Mary. So I was like, she's going to be crying. I don't know. She looked a little tired like throughout. She worked during the day. She's working all week. I don't know. Or maybe her heart is just turning to stone. But yeah. So it was great again. I mean, I love seeing it. And as I said before, it's my favorite comic book movie, and it's because it has so much like comic book action, like comic book like brought to life, and even though there wasn't like a big major villain, these big spectacles, Thanos destroying half the universe and stuff like that. It was very grounded. There's like so many characters, so many cameos. It was just great. But yeah, we're not going to talk about that. I mean, we can. I can do more, but I probably won't. So what's going to happen next week? Next week, I believe, is the The End of Oak Street. And this was a movie that came out of nowhere. I say that for me, it came out of nowhere. I heard nothing about it. I didn't know anything about it. I saw I was like, is that old Ewan McGregor? And I was like, is that Anne Hathaway? I was like, oh, wow. Are those dinosaurs? Obviously, they're dinosaurs. So, yeah, I have no idea how this even started. So I'm looking forward to that. And I'm bummed because I thought it was going to be in IMAX, but I don't think it is going to be. I think at the IMAX closest to me, I could have swore they had IMAX showings when I first looked at it, and I didn't buy my tickets, and they probably would have refunded me, because I'm assuming they're probably going to keep the Odyssey. They're probably looking at, like, people are still buying tickets to the Odyssey. We're going to keep that in IMAX, and maybe they're looking at it as like, no one has bought it. Tony hasn't bought his ticket for the End of Oak Street, so we're going to bump it out of IMAX. Because what I'll say is, when I saw Spider-Man again this week, whatever, saw it in Screen X theater again, and the theater was pretty much packed. It's like pretty much all the seats were taken, and this is like a week later. And it's like, no wonder it's made $1 billion. People are still going to see it. And I will say this again: if you have a chance, I'm not a huge lover of Screen X, but Spider-Man Brand New Day was really, it was sick, as my daughter would say, in Screen X. So I'm seeing End of Oak Street in a regular theater, because it's not going to be in Screen X, because Spider-Man's in Screen X and Odyssey is in IMAX. So it would be like the heathens, or like the common folk, to see the movie in the olden days. I don't know. This has been too long. Obviously, I'm talking gibberish. It's time to end this. So then the TV shows: Silo, X-Men '97, My Adventure Superman, and Cape Crusader. Will probably do all those. Whew. I got more getting ready for school. I'm gonna make me cry. But no, it's gonna be exciting to be back with the kids, right? We'll see. I was in my classroom, and I got the new textbooks. I took them all out of boxes, stacks of books on desks. Like, oh my gosh, like all these books. But it's gonna be fun. So that is gonna be it. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you're enjoying life. I hope you are doing well. I hope you're taking care of yourself. I hope you remember, be good to each other.